The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We're broadcasting.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 1:30 North Carolina Local Government Commission meeting. I'll ask Cindy Aiken to call the roll and quickly describe our meeting procedures and our housekeeping items.
Okay. Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel here. We'll start with Auditor Holmes. Present. Thank you. She's participating virtually. Secretary Marshall is here in person. Secretary Penny.
Here.
Thank you. Virtual. Mr. Burns.
Here.
In the room. Mr. Butler.
Here.
Also present in the room is Ms. Harvey here. Okay, not at the moment. Councilwoman Hoffman. Here. Present virtually. And Mr. Philbeck.
Here.
Also virtual. Treasurer Falwell.
Here.
In person. We have a quorum, and also present for the meeting, LGC staff, including Debbie Tabasco, Secretary, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management, Stephanie Bassick, Assistant Director of Debt Management. As per usual, the meeting proceedings are being recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the department's recording public meetings policy. Everyone will please remember to identify yourself when speaking. When you are participating virtually, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. If we have a power or AV connection issue, the meeting will possibly continue if possible. All audio and video may be continuing to be broadcast, so please keep that in mind if you are virtual. Our agenda is posted on the website, www.nctreasure.com, at the LGC page. If we have changes to the agenda, it will be announced by the chair during the meeting. We will take all votes by roll call without objection. Your motions and seconds will be considered as yes votes unless you want to indicate otherwise during the roll call vote. And as Debbie mentioned a few minutes ago, the microphones in the ceiling are extremely sensitive, and every month I have to tell myself not to rustle my papers because it picks up on the recording. So please feel free to have any private conversations outside. Whispers can even be picked up on the microphones. Ms. Harvey. Oh, thank you. Ms. Harvey has arrived. All right, thank you very much. Virtual. Okay, I believe that's all. Thank you, Treasurer.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. With that, in honor of Veterans Day, I know we have a lot of veterans in our midst here, but I'd like to ask Mr. Butler to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. And then Secretary Marshall, contrary to popular belief, he wasn't in the war. So, and we'll have Secretary Marshall lead us in the North Carolina Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag
of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you. Congratulate Secretary Marshall on her starting her 8th term as a Secretary of State, and congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir.
We're also pleased to have Treasurer-elect Briner to my left, who's been in transition meetings most of the day, as I announced several months ago after the election, and we're glad to have him here. Auditor-elect Dave Bullock is here. Both these folks, Treasurer-elect Briner will be chairing the board, and Auditor-elect Bullock will be sitting on the board. So welcome you all. As I look around the room, I see elected officials, Representative Crutchfield is here, and some others, so I'm sure I've missed some folks here, so welcome you all. We have a conflicts of interest statement. Please take a moment to review the agenda. Does anyone have an actual potential or appearance of a conflict of interest regarding matters that are coming before us? Okay, hearing none, should a conflict arise during the meeting, please let me, Chair, know. We've got a very lengthy agenda today, some very important topics. Oh, sorry, did somebody mention something about a conflict?
Sorry, that's Ms. Harvey. Hi. I'd like to raise the Bald Head Island issue. That's a miscellaneous item on the consent agenda. Robinson Bradshaw is the bond attorney there. The bond lawyer's there, and my husband works for that firm.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey, for always bringing that to our attention. Noted. Without objection, anybody makes a motion or second to motion will be considered a yes vote for efficiency purposes. As you've heard, please mute your phone as we move forward. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda of the meeting minutes on October 1st, 2024.
Second motion.
Alder Holmes makes a motion. Secretary Marshall seconds that motion. Any further discussion regarding the meeting minutes? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
October meeting minutes, Holmes, Marshall, Secretary Penny. Secretary Penny, you're up.
I couldn't get up, hit my mute button.
Sorry. Thank you, sir. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Butler? Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. I'll turn the meeting over to Jennifer and Kendra to talk, the OPEB report, which is attachment A. As many of you have heard me say in the past, it's funny how God made our hand. Anytime you're pointing a finger at someone, there are three more pointing back at you. The biggest offender of not having a funded health plan is the state of North Carolina itself at $35 billion, larger than the state budget. So the OPEB report is before you. This is a report that talks about the entities that are coming in front of the local government commission in terms of their unfunded health care, pension, and LEO liabilities. In the accounting world, we call things estimable and probable to be liabilities. I think these these liabilities are liabilities. So we want to acknowledge these in attachment A. Secondly, as I'm going through and cleaning out my office, came up with a couple of pieces of archives when I was in legislature, Representative Crutchfield. I introduced a bill to put $200 million toward our unfunded liability 20 years ago. I was not successful. So then I changed it to $100. $100. I still wasn't successful. Because when you put $100 towards something, you're recognizing there is a problem there. But I'm taking that opportunity to applaud many of the cities and the counties, starting with Winston-Salem, who has their unfunded health care liability about 85% funded right now, and City of Charlotte, County of Mecklenburg, Wake County, and some other counties are now coming on board and actually started putting money toward these liabilities. And Rose Vaughn Williams was there 20 years ago when I was trying to do this stuff, and still talking about it 20 years later, Rose. So we have a lot of cities and counties that have unfunded liabilities. The state's unfunded liability 8 years ago was 98% unfunded. Right now it's about 91% unfunded. So we're probably going in the wrong direction again because of rising healthcare costs. So thank you for entertaining that piece of trivia about our unfunded liability. Now we'll turn it over to Jennifer and Kendra to talk about attachment B, our UAL unit.
Treasurer. Good afternoon, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management. Today we have one unit, but two separate requests from the town of Carthage. They are on the unit assistance list. The reason that they are presented this way is effects of Senate Bill 265. So the contracts for vehicles, whether it's leased or purchased, coming from any unit on the unit assistance list requires LGC review and approval. The first vehicle is a fire department vehicle. They're looking to finance $43,348. They do have insurance claims in addition to the loan because this was to replace the fire chief's quick response vehicle that was involved in an automobile accident. I'm going to go over the second one and then turn it over to Kendra since this is the same unit. The second request is for $171,801 for 3 new police interceptors. I will now turn it over to Kendra to talk about their FPICs.
Thank you. Kendra Boyle, Director of the Fiscal Management Section. The town of Carthage, as Jennifer told you, is on the unit assistance list. And this is the first year that they've been on this list. And they are up here on the list because of some internal control deficiencies that were findings in their fiscal year 23 audit report. Those internal control deficiencies were related to bank reconciliations that were not done timely and a project ordinance budget that was not adopted by the board prior to expenditure of funds. And additionally, they were over budget in multiple departments. They had violations. Those did not result in use of fund balance. They were just expenditures that exceeded their budgeted amount for those at the budgeted ordinance level. So the unit has identified that the source of these internal control issues is due to a lack of staffing in their finance area, and their plan of action is to hire additional staff to be able to assist the current staff in getting all of these items rectified. They have hired that staff, but they still do not have their bank reconciliations up to date. So because of that, there is a delay in getting their fiscal year 24 audit report to us. But despite these internal control deficiencies, the numbers that we have seen in audited financial statements as well as the budget to actual show a healthy general fund and a healthy water and sewer fund as far as financial condition is concerned. So this request that they brought to you today would be paid out of the general fund for public safety vehicles. And so because we've had the finance officer has been very cooperative and responsive, the board has been responsive, they've laid out a well-planned response to their financial performance indicators of concern. We believe that this debt service for public safety debt will not have a detrimental impact on the status of the general fund's financial condition. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. We have joining us remotely Keisha Matthews, Finance Director of Town of Carthage, and Emily Yop, Town Manager. Welcome to the Local Government Commission meeting. With that, staff's recommendation is to approve. Keisha or Emily, do you have anything you'd like to briefly add?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. With that, I'll entertain a motion to take staff's recommendation.
Move to approve, Bill Beck.
Okay, Phil Beck makes a motion. Mr. Butler, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
two applications for the town of Carthage. That's Phil Beck Butler. Auditor Holmes?
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall?
Aye.
Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
We're now on to our consent agenda, attachment C, through miscellaneous items, Vivian and Town of Mount Pleasant. I'd like to ask any board members if they would like to remove anything from the consent agenda to be voted on separately. Oh, I apologize, Ms. Harvey. I salute you. Other than the bald head item, is there anything else that needs to be removed from this? Okay. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda of the items that are listed before you, absent bald head island?
Move the consent agenda, Hoffman.
Thank you, City Councilwoman. And second?
I'll second. John Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Motion second being made. Any further discussion regarding the consent agenda, absent bald head island? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Attachment C, minus Bald Head Island, which is in Libyan housing through the Mount Pleasant item. Again, eliminating Bald Head. Hoffman Burns. Auditor Holmes?
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler?
Aye.
Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. And Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Do I hear a motion to approve the Bald Head Island application that was previously part of the consent agenda?
So moved, Marshall.
Marshall makes a motion. Secretary Marshall. Alder Holmes second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Bald Head Island, Marshall, Holmes, and Ms. Harvey will recuse. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Butler?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, members. After going through the consent agenda, we're now on to attachment D, Centennial Authority. We have some folks here joining us virtually. Paul Billow, a partner at Wumble Bond Dickinson. Paul, welcome virtually. And in person, we have Mr. Isley from Blanchard, Miller, Lewis, and Isley, and Sarah Dozier from the Chief Financial Officer of the Centennial Authority. You guys want to? Welcome to the Local Government Commission meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Treasurer. My first time here. Mr. Treasurer, this is Jeff Merritt. He's the Executive Director of the Centennial Authority, and I am the Chairman of the Centennial Authority.
Good. Well, I went to see Pink last night, so which one of you are going to do the Pink rendition?
My wife's seen her tonight.
Oh, she's singing.
Good.
Well, she's in for a fantastic show. So,
Thank you.
as well as Maren Morris, who has 7 #1 hits herself. So, anyway, welcome. I looked at this, looked around last night, all the tickets, looked around. So, welcome.
The Centennial Authority is coming today to request to issue $100 million in bond anticipation note revenue bonds. This is the first phase that they are looking to have arena level improvements, including a multi-purpose room, suites and restrooms, relocation of the hockey equipment storage, and relocation of media, dining, and workroom. Also, service level improvement for service yard, pre-function marshaling, and security entry. Upper concourse refresh to include restrooms, concessions, and circulation and stair removal and infill. They have, obviously, they're not technically a unit of government, however, they fall under the Facilities Authority Act of General Statute, Chapter 160A, Article 20, Part 4. Again, the $100 million in revenue bond anticipation notes. And I would take any questions or direct them to the authority.
All right, staff recommendation. Okay. Anything folks would like to say? And
I learned a long time ago when there's a motion to approve on the floor and no other questions that we're just going to shut our mouth for the best.
I was trying to figure out who was supposed to be there with instead of Maureen Lance. I can't remember the singer's name, but anyway. So just generally as a citizen, because this is such an important part of this community, I don't pretend to know what the relationship is between Lenovo, NC State, and the fairground folks. So generally speaking, tell us what you think will be happening just very briefly over what period of time. What will people be seeing with this $100 million?
So the executive director, Jeff Merritt.
Yeah, so this will be a 3-year phase project. This first phase will hopefully start roughly in the spring. We have a full calendar next year. Hockey, we hope, goes to late June with the Stanley Cup playoff run and a Stanley Cup final on the 23rd of June. Put it on your calendar right now. But we're going to start mainly with the service yard improvements that we spoke of. Our third level, the 300 level, the top level is going to get a lot of attention with some new restrooms, food and beverage services. One of the creative ideas that our architects have come up with is taking some of the stairways out. We have too many stairways, and we can actually use that space for additional circulation opportunities. We're also going to create some space on our lower level, call it a multi-purpose room. That room now is used as much as any other room in the facility is, and we want to modernize it and expand it so we can use it for even more events. One of the things that we've lacked for a while is the ability to have large gatherings on our event floor. If you've ever sat on our floor, you have to come down the stairs, go out one vomitory, and then go to your seat. Now we're going to have an opportunity for you to get concessions on the ground level, but also host events on non-event days. We host somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 or 400 non-ticketed events throughout the year. That multi-purpose room will allow us to do that. That'll be our first phase. Again, hopefully complete by the time hockey season ends. There'll be a lot of things going on behind walls and below ceilings and things like that. Then phase 2 and phase 3 will start in earnest in roughly early 2026 and roll through late 2027.
When I buy Section 300 tickets, I'm not on the floor. So I just want to tell you, I've never been on the floor, but
we're going to improve your situation dramatically next summer. I can promise that.
Parking.
Parking is going to improve, I think, based on
$100 last night. So it's part of that going into paying off this debt, or
that Gale Forest Sports Entertainment maintains the parking for us. As you could see, there's a lot of parking attendants, a lot of Raleigh police. We now use NC State University police to help manage that parking. So there's a lot of people that go into managing that. So a lot of those funds goes to pay those folks. But the Centennial Authority does not manage parking.
Our goal during the development, if I may, is to have some DOT improvements, to have some lane signalization improved and upgraded. That's not on our site, but as you look at what we're planning moving forward with the development around the arena, and to your point, the state fairgrounds and all the other activity out there, we're hopeful that what we're doing is going to actually improve ingress, egress into the site, in addition to creating these new parking deck ideas that will allow people to get in quickly and actually exit quickly. That is not necessarily on what this money is for, but just so you understand, there is a very specific plan in place as we move forward to make this area a lot easier to get into and out of.
And Anybody else have a question, you raise your hand. But lastly, is this the first tranche, the last tranche total, the 100 million, or is this?
It's the first.
First of?
300 million ultimately.
And the timing on that's going to be?
Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah Dozier is our CFO.
Yeah.
The timing of that through 27.
Any other questions?
This is financed, thank you. This is financed through the special, it's the prepared food, hotel room, and car taxes, is that, or rental car taxes?
No, the rental car taxes, we're just hotel, motel, prepared food.
Right, okay. And that is, as I recall from being on the county commission and the convention center commission, that is only to be used for purposes of tourism and special events type funding, right?
Correct.
This is not any sort of general budget from the cities or the county going into the building of this building.
It is.
Correct. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? The artist I was trying to think of was Sheryl Crow.
Okay, good.
She's been touring with Pink, and Pink, as you may know, has some origins in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So, long history in North Carolina. So,
And she can sing while upside down.
yeah. I left class last night at 6:30, walked out at 6:43, got in my car and was in the arena in 19 minutes, and the show started at 7:30.
Wow.
It was sold out.
That's pretty good.
Sold out tonight too? Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know who did what yesterday, and in a normal car and one person, but it was even right up to showtime with the sold out concert, and I was shocked I was in there that early. So. And,
Some of us have had other experiences.
well, talking to some of the ushers last night, Nicki Minaj was supposed to go on at 9:30. Her plane didn't land till 11:45. Oh, wow. Private jet. And was there till 2:45 in the morning. So I hear from the ushers there's some groups you sign up for because you know you have some predictability about when you can get home. Because for a lot of these folks, these are second jobs, third jobs. So I appreciate all the staff and security up there. So yes.
Cindy, no question, but just comment that the findings are the same as for other units of government issuing revenue bans and bonds, the same ones. Plus one little additional phrase in the statute that the issue will affect the purposes of the Facility Authority Act, which I assume is to promote regional entertainment arenas. So just so you know what the findings are. Pretty much the same as the other revenue bond that you look at.
May I ask a question of staff? So are we making a finding that this is adequate and not excessive? Is that part of it? Okay.
Yeah, all those, just like on the agenda sheet.
Well, I'll move
Correct.
approval.
Motion being made, second.
Auditor Holmes, second.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion?
Just,
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Commissioner Burns for clarifying to taxpayers that this approval will not result in a tax increase.
Mr. Burns.
I was just going to say go Canes. I'll tell you though, as a part season ticket package holder in the 300 levels, I'm glad you're starting there because I wandered around that place looking for a hot dog. Trying to find a hot dog in the third level is kind of hard, so, but go for it. Do it right, get it done. Looking forward to it.
All right, motion second being made. Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, Centennial Authority, Burns Holmes. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Got a lot of things on the agenda today, and we won't consider it disrespectful if you take your $100 million.
Thank you very much, Mr. Treasurer. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Tell your wife that she'll go on at 8:45 tonight.
Thank you.
Pretty prompt. Thank you. Next on the item is Cumberland County, Attachment E. This is the Cumberland County Industrial Facilities and Pollution Control Financing Authority. It's otherwise known as Project Arrow. We have lots of folks here. I'm just going to say first names without, if it's okay. Harold, Brian, Teresa. Harold and Brian are with the CEO and CFO of American Titanium. Teresa McBride, CEO of McBride Partners. Barry, Chief Legal Officer of McBride Partners. Dave Moffett, Managing Director of Oppenheimer. Robert Van Goens, President of Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation. Mary Nash Rusher, McGuire Woods, and Kristen Kirby of McGuire Woods. So any of those there's room for you to maybe can come up and make a presentation. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions regarding your application. If you need other chairs, we can provide for them.
Introduce herself and what the role is.
Real quick, so thank you. This is Cindy again. Because this one is different from what you normally see, members, again, special statute for this particular issuance, the Industrial Facilities and Pollution Control Financing Authority. And in the statute, they don't use the words findings are not used, but when you look at the agenda sheets that we gave you, it's those four, it's like the third page of the agenda packet for this matter. We have the questions numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the considerations the statute asks you to look at in evaluating this project. So it's similar, but not the same as the normal run-of-the-mill. Does the obligor demonstrate financial responsibility and capability? Are the political subdivisions able to provide utilities? And 3 and 4. So, okay. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew what you're voting on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
of all my years here, I've not seen anything quite like this with the confidentiality aspects embedded into this. How do we do that in a public meeting?
Yeah, for openers, let's talk about that.
My suggestion is to ask the principals that are here what part of your documentation can be discussed. Your bond counsel provided to our members what you all were comfortable with. Of course, this is now a publicly acknowledged project, so I'll let you, unless your counsel directed that.
You've seen, let me interject here. You've seen the document that our board members have seen, obviously.
Yes.
Do you have any objection discussing anything that's in there?
No. Any of the information that's in the package we consider it to be confidential, but for this purpose, for this meeting, for the conduit issuance from the authority for us to do our bonds, we are comfortable to have a discussion about it. And nice to be here. Nice to meet all of you. I'm sorry that we didn't come in last night and go to the Pink concert. I was like, if I would have known.
Tonight also.
Oh, it's tonight also. Okay. Maybe we'll stay longer. I know. I should have followed them out the door.
Yeah. We want you to, before I go to Mr. Butler, just to identify who you are and your role there.
Yeah, I'm Brian Kurtz, the CFO of Project Arrow.
Harold Rocco, I'm the CEO of Project Arrow.
And I'm Teresa McBride, and I'm the managing member of Project Arrow.
And I'm Robert Van Giens, the president and CEO of the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation, charged to represent Fayetteville and Cumberland County in economic development matters.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, yeah.
I want to be sure I understand. So anything you've given us, we don't have to consider that confidential or proprietary. I'll be sure we understand that. Is that an answer? Yes.
The information that's in this document is now no longer confidential, but the additional information that we provided, we would like it to remain confidential. We are onshoring the production of a mission-critical element So the package that he has there, you're onshoring.
You're talking about this package right here.
That's correct.
You want this to be treated as confidential.
That's correct.
And have we ever done
Open
this?
up what? Because I got mine all at one time, so I don't know what is additional and what's not. This is
John, have we ever done this? As a public body, how do we do this?
For members, that was identified separately in your packets with that yellow sheet of paper.
I mean, as a public body, how do we do this?
Recognize Mary Nash.
Mary Nash up here.
Thank you. The information that was provided to you, the contracts, both the equity contracts, both the input and the output contracts are deeply underway, but they are not final. So I believe the information that would like to be kept confidential is the identity of the counterparties to those contracts. However, information about the project, what it's going to do, what it's going to develop, information about the expertise of the folks sitting at the table who are going to be leading this project, information about how the financing is going to work, all of that is public and available.
What about the financial sheets of Project Arrow? Is that, I mean, that's in here for 10 years out. Is that stuff you want discussed on an open mic or not?
That's in this packet.
In the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we all understand that everything said in this room is going out over the airwaves as we speak. So I want to make sure that we don't inadvertently, I know Mr. Butler and I were just talking about this. I mean, as a county commissioner, we would sometimes go into executive session on economic development matters. I don't know, I defer to the treasurer whether we can do that here. But I hesitate to start saying
the numbers, yeah.
Column 3, and talking about that if that's something y'all want confidential. So we're looking for guidance.
Can we go into it?
I don't think we should be subject to anything like that.
Well, I'm not sure we can go into executive session because there's no incentive that will come out of the executive session other than your approval. So again, the company was attempting to provide you sufficient information to recognize how far down the road this deal was, but at the same time, trying to keep close to the vest identity of the counterparties.
So let's just have let's have a discussion if it's something we feel that is confidential that we can't share in an open session. We'll let you know.
Secretary Marshall was the most prolific dancer on the board. Correct? That's what everybody says.
I take the fifth.
Treasurer, anyway, my point is, we've never danced before.
Like this.
And as you start out your comments, this is a very unusual, irregular type of application. And since we've never done this dance before, we'll just.
Sure, absolutely.
I've been in it a long, I've never signed an NDA. Never. If it couldn't be done on the courthouse steps, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I've survived 50-some years in public life and got through it scandal-free.
Thank you. So give us a moment. We're going to let Jennifer go through the process and then open up for questions.
Chairman, do we want to do that or let them tell us about the project first or let Jennifer?
We're just following the standard process.
All right. Let's go.
Yes, it's Jennifer Wimmer. I will, very high level, go over the actual application and then turn it over to the company. So the application is actually for $250 million in conduit revenue bonds. The conduit revenue bonds are to be issued by the company. They are dollar for dollar, $250 million from the Department of Commerce on private activity bond volume cap. That is how the private company can issue these bonds for their purposes through the conduit issuer, Cumberland County Industrial Facilities and Pollution Control Financing Authority. The outlook for the entire project This would be the first application for this amount. The project will go into 2025. And as the sources and uses on the back show, they would be taking out this $250 million at the time that the next bond allocation comes from the Tax Reform Allocation Committee, or TRAC, from the Department of Commerce. So the total project amount is over $1 billion, but this would be the first tranche of the conduit revenue bonds at $250 million for their purposes, and they can discuss and go into details of what the project is and what it will be used for.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome, Local Government Commission, and how would y'all, when you thought about coming here today, tell me about the length of your presentation and who was wanting the
Yeah, I'll start.
Sequence.
Yeah, no, I'll start. So as I indicated earlier, we have historically purchased this product internationally, and there's a growing.
We is who?
The United States aerospace, technology, oil and gas, chemical processing, desalination, and biotech industries have been buying alloyed titanium historically internationally since after World War II. They've just been buying it internationally. It's a very expensive product, and it takes a very long time for them to produce it internationally, to ship it here. And so the Department of Defense indicated to us that it was time to onshore the production to the U.S. because there's a growing demand. Today, historically, I'll give you an example. Historically, the single-aisle aircraft, 2% of the weight was titanium, historically. It grew to today, it's now 15% of the weight, and it's as much as 30% of the weight on a wide body. So it's a very high-use product now because it's half the weight of steel, and it's 2.5 times the strength, and it is inert and or non-corrosive. So for example, it doesn't need to be coated with the caustic chemicals that you coat steel and aluminum with. In addition, it's used in all in-body devices. So anybody that has a pacemaker, a knee, a hip, a pin, that's all titanium. So it's a very precise engineering solution. It's used very sparingly because it's very expensive. So compared to steel per ton, it's extremely far more expensive, and so it's not sold by the ton, it's sold by the pound. And so we have designed the production of this. We did a multi-state site selection. And part of the process, because we use recycled materials to make this, so 75% of what we're going to use is recycled. But it's not scrap like a scrapyard, because that was a question that came to us at the county. Are we going to have a junkyard scrap? This is the only product in the entire Boeing supply chain that they contract with us. They pay us. We deliver to 5,000 vendors that make parts for them. They make the part, and they ship the part to Boeing and 100% of the scrap. And when they cut into a plate, they affect the structure of that plate. So they cut parts out to make a plate, and the rest of that plate is scrap. So our goal is to be at, for every 10 pounds we deliver to a parts manufacturer, 1 pound will be part and 9 pounds will be scrap. So it's continuously creating scrap, and all that scrap goes to Boeing. Boeing owns all of it from beginning to end. It's infinitely recyclable, so Boeing gets the scrap, they wash it, they crush it, and they turn it into these pucks that you see on this first page. And then we roll it, or we melt it and turn it into this ingot. This ingot here, the current ingots in the market are being made between 2,000 and 5,000 pounds. That's a current ingot. we're going to be producing ingots that are between 22,000 and 37,000 pounds. So this is a jumbo mill, and then we roll it. We only sell two products, plate and sheet. That's all. So we'll roll that plate and roll that sheet. And then in the production of the facility, it'll be about 500 construction jobs for a 3-year period. It's a 36-month build. And then in the operating of the company, we start out with about 300 employees. And it's a technical job, so they're very high-end, high-paying jobs, and it's about over 100,000 annually, which is twice the local, salary.
I think we get all that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, how much money are y'all putting in this?
So the total project is
No, the y'all's money, not money you're borrowing.
300 million, almost 400 million.
400 million of your money you're putting in there.
Ours and other institutional industrial funds. So the big guys are also coming in this transaction. We have more interest in our equity than we have equity available. So if our equity is at 300 million, we've got over $1 billion in interest because it's a very good project. It's a very clean project. It's considered to be green. And it's also has a very good return. As I said, it sells at a higher price than steel. So for these industrial investors that are used to getting high single digit returns in their industrial investments, this is much better than that. So we have much more interest than we have availability. And David, who's with Oppenheimer, is here as Oppenheimer's our underwriting firm. And the reason we're doing this is because we qualify for a larger amount of private activity bonds. And as you all know, you issue this private activity credit to us. We then give that to our bond buyer, and they get a tax-exempt bond, so they give us a better rate. So this is how we get a better rate for a portion of the bond. So we have a taxable portion. Our debt is going to be taxable at $700 million and tax exempt at $600 million. We qualify for about $800 million in tax exempt, but from the state we agreed that we would do $600, and a portion is in 2024, which expires December 31st. So we're closing this now to capture this, put it in escrow, and then the rest follows in 2025. And when we close this, unlike the bond market's very big, so it's larger than the debt market, so larger than the direct debt market. And so when we close this project, 100% of the cash, all debt and all equity goes into a trust account. Wilmington Trust is who we're using as a trust company. And then we draw from the trust as opposed to a construction loan where you get progress payments over a period of time. So we're not at risk if there's any issues with a bank or anything of that nature.
Just to make clear, I want to, who pays back the debt on the project?
The company.
It comes from the company, it's not coming from the company.
There's no liability, if you want to explain. Yeah, it's a conduit issuance. So essentially, because it goes through the county, it touched the county, we can get a tax credit. We take that tax credit, it's like monopoly money, we hand it to the bond buyer, and they get a tax-exempt bond, so they're charging us a lower rate. So we have two rates, a tax-exempt rate and a taxable rate, and that blended rate is better than both being taxable, or all of it being taxable.
But to answer your question directly, neither the county nor the city nor any governmental entity is on the hook, if you will, for this.
This is an economic development program that exists, federal tax credit, and it was created for jobs, but it's difficult to use because you can't use it easily because you have to have, this one is done via solid waste exemption. So there's a lot of companies out there.
You're doing it under the guidelines that you're getting rid of solid waste because of the scrap. That's the hook that got you in the door.
That's the hook that gets us the tax exemption.
I know.
And I'll say this respectfully.
Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of questions on this board when you're talking about $1 billion of something no one's ever done before, at least while I've been the treasurer. And so probably need to tighten up your answers just a little bit to give all the board members an opportunity to get what's on their minds.
So I want to introduce you to Harold, who we selected to be the CFO of the company. And his background is with the company that is the producer of the mill. So the company that's been in business 150 years, and they produce mills. They have operating mills in 60 countries. And they are based in Germany, but they have 20 offices here. And he was the COO of that company and responsible for installations in 30 countries?
Yeah.
Yeah, far larger than this project. Yes, so.
Well, in one sentence, what is McBride Partners?
So what we do is we do the assembly of all of this. So people bring us these projects to be evaluated, predominantly in the aerospace industry, and we'll identify the site and we'll pull the team together, et cetera. So operating side is over here.
So Harold Ruggel, and I have been 32 years with the company called SMS, which is well known here in the US. They have a setup in Pittsburgh. The company has been since 150 years in the processing of metals, aluminum, steel, titanium, copper, whatever. And
was SMS known previously by another name over the 150 years that
it was
may be familiar with?
It was CMAC, and then it was SMS. So, and the company is having about 14,000 employees worldwide. And
revenues?
Revenues around 3 billion a year, 4 billion a year.
That's the revenue.
That is the turnover per year, and the revenue is, let's say, in the range of 4 or 5%.
Okay, so the revenue is 3 or 4 billion.
Yeah.
But the return on the revenue is 4 to 5%.
Yeah. That is what I know from the past. So I dropped out some while ago.
Right.
I started as a mechanical engineer and have a mechanical background, and I made my way from designer and project management in these kind of rolling mills, all the way up to become COO on the managing board of that company. And
the revenue of the whole company, the parent company, is about 3 to 4 billion.
Yeah.
And you're asking to borrow potentially $1 billion here, just on one project.
They are not the parent company. We are buying equipment from them. So part of the equipment purchase is with his former company. So of this project, the equipment is about $500 million, and the cost to build the project is another $500 million. And then we take the interest during construction and we draw that and we put it in escrow.
Yeah.
And then we also take 1 year of interest in principal and we put that in escrow.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So his company he was with is the company that builds these mills for U.S. Steel, Alcoa, Nucor.
SDI, Big River Steel, so of the Thyssen plant in Mobile, Alabama.
The biggest mills in the world is his former company. They build, install, and implement these mills and maintain them.
And for those virtually, just, I know you have a thing on your computer to raise your hand, but just do like this, just to catch my eye, Mr. Burns.
I just have this is not a financial question, and probably not relevant to the 4 questions we have to answer, but I am curious. What type of furnace? Is it an electric arc furnace or a blast? What type of fuel are you using to?
We use both electricity for our PAM and VAR furnaces, and then we use natural gas for the rolling mill furnaces. That rolling mill will roll at about 2,000 degrees. So it's a hot roll, so we will roll the metal at 2,000 degrees. Constantly, yes. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation.
On that. Have you got a contract? I noticed in the readout you talked about doing PwC or Duke. Do you have a contract to supply that amount?
Yeah.
With a wet signature
Oh, yeah.
on it?
Oh, yeah, we could. So part of the site selection process, the first step in the site selection process is to evaluate the utility capability and the wastewater, utility, and power and gas capability. So that was confirmed early on. And then they gave us a will serve letter and made it to the attention of the local economic development saying, yes, we have the capability and we can serve. But for this meeting, we had them send it to us addressed to the company. So there was a little delay.
There'll be additional lines built to the site.
There will be some extensions and improvements. We have plenty of downstream capacity. There will be, currently, there'll be extensions of a gravity sewer line to get to the site itself. We'll be extending an existing water line. There'll be some transportation improvements to extend the access road and put a light out on the roads. The things typical with an economic development project, but as far as capacity within the system, that is more than adequate. We do need to extend things a bit into the site because it's previously been undeveloped. It is identified as one of our best sites, but we have preliminary endorsements for grants from the IDF, and the city and the county are funding it as well with PwC.
And it was a mega site in Fayetteville, and the reason we picked one, because they did have the infrastructure supported, but the other reason we picked it is the economic development support that we received there, the local community.
Do you have control of the site?
Yes, and we're going to not only get this.
You actually purchased the site?
We have 300, option on the 315 acres, additional total 350. Pardon?
Who owns the site?
It's held by a private individual.
Who we've been working with.
Dr. Franklin Clark.
You've got a lock on an option at a given price?
Yes.
That expires when?
And the end of April? Because we're closing in April, so April, May. Yeah, you got a question up there?
Mr. Alder Holmes?
I defer to Ms. Holmes.
Yes. Alder Holmes.
Thank you. I have two questions. One, what would be the impact on this project if we did not approve this item today? And also, what would your plan be if this item is not approved?
We would go to another state. We would go to another state. It would require that we go to another state.
I noticed on this, go ahead, John.
Follow up, Ms. Alder Holmes.
Yeah, did you finish? Okay.
In terms of going to another state, so do you mean as in if it's not approved today or if it was delayed to another agenda?
I think we can't delay it any further because we would lose the 250. The 250 expires. So this is tax credit. This is not cash. This is tax credit. And we take that tax credit and we put $250 million in the bank in cash, or a trust. So $250 million goes into the trust. It sits there until it merges.
Right. And so,
go ahead.
Mary Nash Roger, can I just clarify this? It's not really a tax credit.
No, we haven't. Okay.
It is volume cap. So you might remember that for private activity bonds in the state of North Carolina, for anything other than 501c3 bonds, they don't need volume cap. Every state in the country gets 120, this year it was $123 times state population of volume cap. And that's the total amount of private activity bonds that can be done in that state in any given year.
And most of that's used for affordable housing.
Most is for affordable housing. Some for, you did one 2 years ago for Cargill, you might remember was exactly this kind of project in the same county even. So solid waste disposal, those rules were expanded about 15 years ago to move from just solid waste disposal, which was private landfills, to recycling. So this fits in the recycling bucket. Back in the old days, there are one or two of you in this room that remember when we used to do industrial development bonds through this process, but those are capped at $10 million, which just doesn't go as far as it did in 1984. And so those rules are so Byzantine, you don't see many of those anymore. So the Tax Reform Allocation Committee, TRAC, which allocates volume cap for the state, has allocated, recognized that volume cap in North Carolina for 2024 is about 1.3 billion. In 2025, it's going to be over 1.4 billion because they raised the 123 to 125, and because people are smart and they keep coming to North Carolina, our population goes up. And so the track has allocated 250 of the 2024 cap, and then the administrator at track believes that even with the demand for affordable housing, given the $1.4 million, there will be enough room for another 350 in 2025. So the way to capture that cap in 2024 is to go ahead and issue the bonds, but they will be secured by cash. So the equity providers will have to pay all the costs needed to get this thing closed. They will have to put into escrow all the money needed to pay interest on that, and they will be funded all the way until September of 2025, so that there is just shy of a year to get Part B done, to get the rest of the volume cap, to get the documentation in place, to get the rest of it done. But for the period that they're in escrow, these bonds will be secured by cash and will be AAA rated. And so these bondholders will either be paid out because when Part B gets done, volume cap gets allocated, all the pieces and parts are in place, they would refund the 2024 bonds. Those bonds go away. Now we have 2025 bonds. That cash that secures the 24s just becomes part of the project fund for the 2025s. It's, in tax speak, it's transferred proceeds. Those proceeds just transfer to the 2025 bonds. So this is a way to lump 2024 volume cap and 2025 volume cap. There is a process whereby that 2024 volume cap could be carried forward, but our state, except for the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency and their larger affordable housing programs, typically does not do carry forward. They simply will take it back. So there are probably 10 housing deals that have gotten volume cap for 2024 that won't close. They'll just give it back and then get it again in 2025. But this is a way to avoid asking the state ever to give $600 million in volume cap to one project.
In 1 year. Yeah.
Well, I happen to be on that committee as the treasurer, and Treasurer-elect Reiner will also be on that committee. And during that first discussion, I abstained from voting on this transaction because I couldn't understand it. So anyway, thank you for that explanation. But it on to Mr. Burns, but the whole time that I've been the treasurer, I mean, affordable housing is a big deal, especially when you look at how far people are having to drive to get to their urban work settings. And so I've always been very protective about volume cap and things diverting money away from affordable housing. So, Mr. Burns.
I mean, at the end of the day, isn't that what we're doing?
Well, with all due respect, you might see that they're coming to you today for, there is so much volume cap, they will get at the end of this year, probably even when this project gets funded, between $400 and $500 million that they've got to use in the next 3 years, and they have been getting that amount.
But they being the housing?
And most of that goes into the single-family mortgage program. The multifamily mortgage program, they're probably 30 of those deals approved every year, 20 that those are done in $20 and $30 million chunks. It takes a lot of those to use up $1 billion.
The housing.
With all due respect, what if you're wrong about that? I mean, the people would not be able to, their capital would not be there to do those deals. If you're wrong about us not hitting our head on the ceiling and there being plenty of volume cap and more people moving to our state.
I just know there's $1.4 billion in 2025.
And if I can ask, in 2024, you're looking for 250 million?
Right, that's what was allocated.
That's what's allocated?
Yeah.
And if this doesn't go through, it's not like there's $250 million worth of public housing
waiting in the wings to be funded.
Well,
with that
the
money
Housing
this
Finance
year.
Agency would get it, and they would have 3 years to use it.
3 years to use it.
They get the leftover.
This is part of this has gone through the JDIG process as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's all completed, and now you're just buttoning up the last financial aspects of it?
Correct.
And how many jobs?
It's 500 construction jobs over 36 months. It's over 300 jobs initially, and then we'll grow to 500 jobs in about a 4-year period.
Given that there would be a titanium supply nearby, are you expecting spin-off jobs in the aerospace industry?
Well, this would be a very big foot in the door for Fayetteville to create an aerospace community. And the land that we're buying, so this is going to sit on 134 acres. We're buying another 250 acres, and we've got about 5 other companies that we will be building for there that are related to the aerospace industry.
Let me ask you something. I read about the take-or-pay contract.
Mm-hmm.
At what level was that signed by Boeing?
It is the only take-or-pay contract in the entire company. So Boeing.
But my question was, at what level? Who signed the piece of paper?
It had to get board approval because it's the only take-or-pay contract.
Is it in the board minutes then?
I don't know if it'll be in their public board minutes, but I know that they had to go to the highest level to get it. We work with the head of contracting for the whole company. That's my relationship at Boeing. The reason it's not miraculous that we got a take-or-pay contract, people think it is a product that they cannot build an aircraft without. So they were willing to sign a take-or-pay contract because they can't build an aircraft without it.
Isn't Boeing out seeking capital right now? I looked at their stock today. It's a year low, and it's the lowest it's been in 12 months.
Well, they've got a backlog of 49,000 aircraft. So, but Boeing and Airbus combined, they have a backlog of 49,000 aircraft. They're making 70 a month. So they've got a lot of aircraft to make.
But to mathematically answer Mr. Butler's question, they are issuing preferred stock, not a sign of strength. They have issued equity, not a sign of strength. They are trying to refinance their debt, not a sign of strength. Right. So the backlog is, we all know there's 2 places that make airplanes. We all are very familiar with economic development, and so it's a fair question.
Yeah. If I could just offer one thing this does from a defense, from a procurement side, as we're home to Fort Liberty, this brings to the U.S. production of this critical resource that is currently done in nations that are not our friends, whether it be Russian or Chinese, and the flaws that come with that. So when we look at the ability to serve, yes, that customer, but aviation, defense, and innovation, this is truly a transformational project for Fayetteville and Cumberland County, and aligns with what we do best, which is protect America there in Fayetteville at Fort Liberty.
And we will be exporting to Airbus in France, and we will be exporting to Germany and UK and other allied nations for their defense systems. But we chose to go with Airbus as our first largest take-or-pay contract.
Let me ask you this, and the reason I was so questioning about confidential, I spoke to a metallist that specialized in aircraft, metal, titanium. He advised me that their manufacturing process is so sophisticated now, there is not that much waste. I'm just telling you what the man told me. He said, there is not that much waste to be recycled again. But that's one person's opinion who lives very well and was a medalist. I
will explain to you, there's different types of end product. We're going to make plate, and there is long product that they remelt. They cut it off and they forge parts for landing gear and things of that nature. There's no waste there because they're remelting it and forging it into set parts. What we're selling is a plate that's like this, and that's the parts that they have to cut out. So it's stamping, it's a different process. There's no major jumbo plate manufacturer in the U.S.
Let me ask you this. On the rendering of the plant, it shows a rail line. What role does rail play in this?
that is the RJ Corman line. It is utilized in both the delivery and refurbishment of equipment, as well as has the capacity to be inbound for
Is that right
titanium
on the
scrap.
site now?
It is.
Because it says proposed in here.
I'm sorry?
I thought it said,
The rail line is there. The spur will be built as part of the construction.
doesn't it say proposed?
The equipment that we have coming in for the rolling section is extremely heavy. And so that has to come on rail. So it comes, and that is a consideration for us selecting a site. It comes via ocean, then gets transferred to rail, and then on our site, we have cranes that are 250-ton cranes that will lift that equipment and place it in place. So the equipment, I think.
It's mainly the rolls, because the rolls are a wear and tear part. And after a certain period, you have to get new ones and you have to grind them. So there is a regular transportation, not every day, but frequently, so that these rolls have to come in. They have a weight of more than 100 metric tons.
And what will the value be on the tax books in Cumberland County?
At completion, roughly $1.5 billion.
And is Cumberland County going to waive any of the property taxes on that?
But we do have a performance-based grant from the Cumberland County, approved by Cumberland County and the city of Fayetteville, and it escalates based on the performance of the company. They have to get the maximum grant back, they would have to have more than $1 billion on the tax books and have more than 400 jobs paying an average salary, roughly 150% of it.
Property taxes be cut.
It would be up to, they could at maximum achievement get 85% for a few years. It would go up and down.
Reduction in the property taxes.
They're receiving an incentive grant.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and that's part of the incentive over a set period of time, a few years.
What's the tax base of Cumberland County now?
The total tax base?
Yeah, what is the
I'm sorry, sir, I don't have that.
Secretary Marshall.
Yeah, go on.
I have a totally different kind of thing. In looking at this and reading it, I'm not, this is not my field, obviously, but I didn't see anything about environmental permitting. I see it's a minor remitter, but.
Yeah, we get an air permit. So the air permit work has already been done. It's almost complete. So first of all, we had to get wetland delineation with the Army Corps of Engineers. So that's been completed. It was done July 12th, the complete,
that's about right.
Yeah, complete certification. And then the historical artifacts was completed and the endangered species was completed. And then we do an air permit with your DEQ. And we've done a majority of the work. The meetings that we're going to have in the next 2 days with the equipment providers is going to be to there's some improvements, et cetera, but we don't emit anything other than heat. And one thing I do want to say that it helps clarify this a little bit, if you go to a steel mill, there's sparks flying and slag flowing, and that's the kind of environment. When you melt titanium, you melt it in a vacuum, and you deal with it in a very controlled environment. It is it's a clean room environment. So it's not, there's no sparks or anything. It's just a very clean, when it's rolling, it's an orange thing going back and forth on the rollers because it's hot, it's rolled hot, but the rest of the environment is extremely clean.
And follow up, Secretary Marshall.
I'm trying to figure out how it operates.
No, to answer your question on a local level, the only output on this, and this does not contradict what Member Butler had heard, if you're talking about waste in the production process, what they get is scrap from production of parts.
Yeah.
The cooling water goes into our sewer system. The air permit is a minor air permit, which is similar to what the VA has or Cape Fear Valley Regional Hospital, and not the higher level, which some of our other manufacturers have. So it's actually just a minor air emission permit. And sewer water cooling water goes into the PWC sewer system, which would be pre-tested prior to it getting to the plant.
Just a couple of, well, I'm sure we're going to have more questions, but since members of this board wear several different hats, I thought the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was supposed to bring low-cost natural gas to Cumberland County. So where are you getting all this natural gas?
We're getting it from Piedmont, from Duke.
It does not reach, Piedmont has done a series of upgrades. There's actually a site that we had spoke to them about and are increasing capacity to compensate for what could have been the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. But they do not need that high level of firm pressure and volume in order to achieve their process. So we do have adequate capacity and ability to get there with Piedmont.
Alder Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to go back to environmental impact and make sure that I understand this correctly, that the permitting and sort of environmental evaluation is pending.
It's a minimal impact. So we're a minor emitter is what it's considered. So we've had several meetings with your DEQ, and we have a company, an engineering firm that evaluates every piece of equipment, and then they work with us on our air permit application. Thomas and Hutton is the firm that we're using for that. And they have been working with the state DEQ, and so we're almost wrapped up. What has to happen next is they put testing equipment on site to determine airstream and airflow, and then after that, it's wrapped up.
Follow-up, Alderman Holmes?
Should there be any issues with that process, then what?
If I may, respectfully, I believe that the final specifics to get the actual permit rely on the location of the equipment and the siting in the final design. That is still coming through this process here. But the ability, based on the emissions, to get a permit is not in question, and they are well below those thresholds. But to actually get the document, you have to be able to finalize everything, and we are working through that as part of this here, unless I'm mistaken.
That's correct.
So we can get it, we just can't fully apply and finalize it until we get past this point.
Yes.
You made a comment earlier, if this board does not approve this transaction, that you'll go to another state.
Correct.
There's been some degree of confusion about the company with your name versus another company with a name similar to yours that went bankrupt in South Carolina. And when you talk about going to another state, I was under the impression that that wasn't really an option for you because of your ability to use this type of bond. Is anything I've said correct?
No, other states have large private, I mean, think of any populous state in the country, they all have private activity bond allocation ability. We would just have to, because we've had to run a multi-state site selection because you can't be, all your eggs in one basket. So we're very busy bees and working on a lot of things. But
about the confusion with the names.
We name things based on the country where we're doing it, what it is. They also name themselves something similar to ours. We don't have a relationship with that company. It is a separate company.
It was called?
They were called Works. They were called Works, and we're called Metal. So they were going to make parts as well. They were going to make
the full name.
Their American Titanium Works.
And they declared bankruptcy.
They declared bankruptcy. They were building something much different than what we are, smaller and different.
And I'll say this for the record, is there anybody in your company that was associated with that company?
We've hired some of the people that had worked with that company historically. So our head of construction, who used to work for U.S. Steel, who used to work for Nucor, had also consulted with them. He's now working with us, but that's what he does. He works with a lot of companies.
Are any of your vendors like Boeing, are they Oppenheimer, are any of them equity investors?
Yes. Some of our vendors are equity investors.
Boeing's 50% of your business.
No, we did not opt to take capital from customers. Our vendors are invested. So our construction company asked if they could invest. Our melting furnace company asked if they can invest. SMS has asked if they can invest. Multiple vendors are investing, but not customers. We want to keep our customers as customers. And so.
But the first tranche of this is an interest-only loan. So when you talk about debt service, you're not talking about the P, you're talking about the I. You're not talking about the principal.
Yes, sir, because the principal will be, the principal and enough money to pay the accrued interest, all of that will be funded on day one and invested either in slugs or in treasuries, so that when we get to the interest payment date and the payoff date, if the refunding doesn't happen, the bondholders are made whole. So the goal is for the bondholders to have no risk here.
And just like in this building, if you earn a higher rate of interest on that investment versus what you're paying, then you're going to pay tax on that, even though it's, quote, not taxable.
We would have to rebate it to the federal government. If the delta would be rebated if they don't meet an exception. They're going to pay something, yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
And our, yeah.
Did you do any work on this project in Tennessee?
No.
Are you familiar with it? There's a major titanium plant up there in Tennessee. It's a scoping study. You find it online.
Have any of you ever heard of that?
You've never heard of this?
Not. Well, I'm not sure where Mr. Butler's going, but is there a chance that this could be like a mill? I mean, it is a mill, sort of, but that something like this could pop up if the return on equity is so high that you've got a 4-time oversubscription for your equity. I'm just kind of curious what RO.
Could more be built? Right now, the production, the demand, that's why we have an expansion planned, but the demand is far greater than what's available. Even if Russia came back into the market, it's far greater than what's available. So there's more need and growing need. They're starting to use it in automotive. They're working on redoing half of the submarine fleet that uses a ton of titanium, tons and tons of titanium, et cetera. So, and Brian didn't speak much, but Brian was a CFO.
He didn't spoke at all.
He said his name.
Doing okay.
But Brian was a CFO at both, or
Yeah, I worked at Nucor Steel. Y'all are probably very familiar with Nucor Steel. I was the plant controller of Nucor Steel Berkeley. So I was involved in the Greenfield project all the way from start to commissioning, and it was about $1 billion project there, and it is now the flagship steel mill of Nucor. So it was a great project to be involved in. After that, I worked at International Steel Group in Cleveland, Ohio, for Wilbur Ross, who was the former Secretary of Commerce under the Trump administration. And we bought Bethlehem Steel, which was kind of an exciting thing. We bought Bethlehem Steel. We had bought LTV Steel, and we took the company public. So I am a licensed CPA in North Carolina and South Carolina. After I did my financial stint in Cleveland, I then ran a steel mill in Georgetown, South Carolina. I don't know if you all are familiar with the steel mill in Georgetown. So I ran that steel mill for 3 years. We took it out of bankruptcy, believe it or not, and employed over 300 people at that mill while I was there. So I was directly involved in that. And after that, I've now had my own CPA practice for a number of years in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Did the titanium plant in South Carolina, the project that went bankrupt, did they ever?
No, they never broke ground. No, they never broke ground. They had identified a site, and they got about $2 million, as I understand it, in incentives. They hadn't completed their tax incentives yet. So they never broke ground or anything of that nature. It was more exploratory. This is more, to build. And I will say one thing that has been said earlier, but when you take steel and copper, steel sells for about a finished plate, like what we'll produce will be plates this thick. Finished plate sells for about $700 to $1,000 a ton. Aluminum sells for about $2,500 to $2,900 a ton. Titanium, the alloy that we're going to make. Now you can go on Alibaba and buy some kind of titanium for $50 or something, but the plate alloy that we're going to make sells between $35,000 and $250,000 a ton. So it's not sold by the ton, it's sold by the pound. And so it's a different, and it's engineering solution that they cannot, like I said, they can't build an aircraft without it. We can't redo the submarine fleet without it. We can't build our military aircraft without it. It's just, historically, it was being bought elsewhere.
Why did you choose the Fayetteville site?
Excuse me?
Why did you choose the Fayetteville site?
Size, proximity to rail, utility capability, local. Yeah, we looked at other sites.
Other facilities that were not flat facilities.
I would say the way this project came to be to us is actually rather interesting, as in they had looked previously, and it was there. It's interesting. Was it Ronald Reagan? Well, he didn't originate it, but trust but verify is often prescribed to him, and locally we feel the same way. We were working with a developer on a project that is happening here elsewhere in North Carolina, a developer of substantial capacity. That project, they liked our site, they liked our team. In the end, the wages for that project ended up being too low for the Fayetteville market, but they said, we have got someone that you need to talk to. We've got a project that we think would be great. And that is how we were introduced to Teresa.
They're the same construction company.
And so that is a site that we have prepped to be shovel ready, and it is our last best site, and this is exactly the type of project within the capacity we were able to acquire through natural gas for this type of project there. Beyond that, too, we actually, when I dug a little deeper, have seen some of their technical staff working with other major titanium manufacturers in smaller facilities, including those in Salisbury. So at each step of the way, from SMS to the developer to the actual, those on the team, the technical aspect, we've seen their capacity to do it, but how did it come to us? It came to us because of the quality of site and the experiences the developer had with our team looking at it previously.
If you took this transaction to a bank, we have a lot of great bankers in the state, based on the financials that you presented this board, do you think that they would finance this?
Yes, but the problem with going to a bank is banks can't do loans over 50 million, essentially. They'll syndicate it out. And so when I go to a bank to get a loan, they syndicate it to the A, the B, and the C tranche at different rates. So then I get some sort of blended rate. The value for any big project to go to a bond market is everybody has the same rate. It's easier to get it done. That's why the bond market is larger than the commercial loan market. It's a larger market.
And you're Delaware chartered, North Carolina chartered corp. Where are you?
It's a North Carolina. It's a North Carolina corp, but we will be licensed. We will be registered in the state as well with you.
Is it a corp?
I mean, it's a Delaware corp. Sorry, Delaware corp.
Delaware corp.
LLC.
Okay.
Delaware LLC, and then we will be
Domesticated here.
Yes.
I'd be happy to do it.
Yes, thank you. I look forward to it. That's on our list of to-dos after this meeting.
Is there a staff position or a review of this application?
As Cindy mentioned, the findings, if you will, or what we were tasked to review, we've reviewed them and the answers and were satisfactory.
Okay.
This is Cindy Aiken. If I can piggyback on that, because this was different, because this is a brand new venture and there's no history for this particular history, the staff could do so much what they could do with the proposed projected findings. And so our thought was to try to give you as much information as you can so you could do due diligence. So what we had was, we had a letter from Mr. Say your last name.
It's all right. You can say it any way you want.
Robert.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Treasurer.
Thank
We
you.
knew it had been through JDIC, so the Department of Commerce, but again, the trust but verify idea, try to give you members as much information and have this Q&A as well, because this is different from almost everything else you look at where there's some kind of financial history.
You mentioned the volume cap. Other than that board, is there any other boards that this has been approved by? As far as the
county for the JDIG,
state level,
JDIG, and then the volume cap allocation.
which part of that comes through the Department of Commerce? Which part?
These folks.
Because I asked I sent an email, is in your material to Secretary Sanders. Since we've never done this before, we're talking about over $1 billion. Is she personally, does she endorse this as the Secretary of Commerce? I did not get an answer back that was satisfactory to me. I do not speak for her, but she said that, I guess it's in your board material that I was just looking for a simple yes or no. Since it's something that's never been done before, I consider it to be speculative and highly leveraged and taking money out of volume cap. So I did make that attempt anyway. So anybody else have a question?
I'll move approval of the project as Rec has proposed in the application.
Is anybody comfortable with making a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Billback. Is that okay, Secretary Marshall?
Could Mr. Burns please repeat the motion?
Move approval of the application as presented.
We have a motion second. Is there any further discussions or any questions that you'd like to ask?
I'd like to ask Cindy one question. Cindy, I'm on the board that approves these JDIG grants. Does that create any issue for me?
Well, that's a good question. So you were involved in this one, Secretary Penny?
Either I was involved or somebody who represented me was involved. Let's just put it that way.
I don't know. Yeah, make quick, so I keep this chapter open on my, I don't think so.
It's no personal interest.
No, I don't have any personal interest. And obviously the legislature who put me on both of these boards knew that this kind of thing come up.
For that matter, Treasurer Falwell was on the track. He abstained, but he didn't have to. So, no, that's not going to constitute a conflict, but I'm going to double check myself because I say that.
I don't see how it could be a conflict.
We have a, let me proceed.
I think I got an answer, so I'm fine.
He's fine.
It's not a conflict.
It's not a conflict. His duty's the same in both instances.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Just one final point. As far as so you're an employee of the company.
Yep.
You're an employee of the company.
That's correct.
You're a
Project manager.
And is that a contingent fee or how's that designed?
No, we're actually investing in the project.
Okay. And the economic development director?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Who's paid by
the city and the county to improve our economic and job creation in our community, yes.
Without contingency?
No contingency, absolutely not. Do a good job, I get to keep my job.
All right, motion second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
And I'm satisfying myself that neither one of those two pathways to look at conflicts are going to apply to Secretary Penny or yours for that matter question. No.
I abstained on the other committee because I didn't understand the deal.
Yeah, that's fine.
Still don't understand the deal.
Yeah, the financial relationship or the personal/business relationship, but it's not that. All right, the authority for so I don't have to say the whole name. The IFP-CFA of Cumberland County. Burns and Philbeck, motion second. Auditor Holmes.
I'm going to abstain on this one. I do not feel comfortable voting for it. I don't feel like I have enough information. And from what I've heard from staff, and from what I've read in the email from Secretary Saunders, there doesn't seem to be a resounding yes. And I will also note that there's no precedent for this, and I've heard comparisons to a failed company that went, had at least some similarities that went bankrupt. And I'm also not comfortable voting in favor of this regarding the volume cap and the possibility of tying up that much of the cap in a fiscal year.
Okay, I'm marking abstain. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Come back to me, please.
Mr. Butler?
I'm not going to vote for it.
Is that a no?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman?
No.
Treasurer Falwell?
No.
Secretary Penny?
Aye.
I get 5 yes and 3 no and 1 abstain.
Feel bad.
2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, the motion carries 5-3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We'll take a break till
We'll do it.
12 after 3 if we can.
Serious volcanoes.
That was a,
So this is broken up into two, right?
and are we good? Mics are unmuted again? If anybody who's listening virtually can let me know you can hear me, please. Just make sure we're connected.
You want to make sure.
Auditor Holmes, y'all can hear you.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. So we have Secretary Penny, Auditor Holmes, Ms. Harvey, Mr. Philbeck, Ms. Hoffman back. I believe those are all of our virtual members.
Secretary Marshall's.
Oh, Secretary Marshall's. Should have noticed that.
Yeah, I'm still. Sure, I'm phone now.
Just a reminder, mics are open and we're broadcasting again, but we're waiting 2 more minutes before we begin.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What would you like?
So we're now back in session. We're now to attachment F, Cabarrus County. We have 2 applications that are before us at the request of the county that they be split into 2 applications. I'll turn the meeting over to Jennifer. We have a whole list of folks here. Many of you have seen them here over the last several months on other items. And with that, Jennifer, you have the floor.
Can I note really quickly for members, sorry, in your packets you were provided with comments pursuant to our policy. Early this afternoon, members were provided with any last comments that came in as of midnight last night, again, pursuant to our policy. So they're either in your emails. If any members here would prefer a hard copy, if you didn't receive it, we're happy to spin those off as we begin discussing it. But you did just want to make note that members did receive another email with some more comments.
Thank you, Debbie. Again, this is Jennifer Wimmer. The debt approval applications before the commission today for Cabarrus County are being presented as 2 separate items at the county's request, as Chair Falwell had said. The first application is for $73 million in limited obligation bonds for 9 projects, including various school projects, a library, and a senior center building. The county has provided information as required for these 9 projects, included in this first request. We are pleased to recommend approval for this first request. The $73 million request includes an addition for Fred L. Wilson Elementary School, Concord High School HVAC replacement, Forest Park Elementary HVAC replacement, Bennington Hills Elementary HVAC replacement, RCCC South Campus HVAC replacement, Hickory Ridge High School roof replacement, Cox Mill Elementary School roof replacement, Wolf Meadow Elementary School roof replacement, and a public library and active living center at Afton Ridge. Again, this is a request for $73 million. The term is 10 years on the equipment portion of this and 20 years on the construction. An estimated all-in true interest cost is 2.905% for the equipment and 3.595% for the other projects, with a not to exceed amount of 5%. The public sale is a date to be determined.
Staff is recommending that the application of the $73 million of LOBs for these multiple projects be approved. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I so move.
So moved, Alder Holmes.
Mr. Butler made the motion. Alder Holmes will second.
If I could add, I have a question, if I could, Mr. Treasurer, to suggest a friendly amendment to that motion, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, John.
To approve and allow the bonds to go forward to sale.
Never heard of that before. Somebody will have to educate me. What does that mean?
What's that?
It's my.
What are you fearful of? I guess?
I'm not really fearful of anything. I'm just. It's my understanding that there's kind of two steps they have to go through. We can approve the projects, but there may be other rules that we have established that may limit when the bonds are able to go for sale. Is that accurate?
No.
Okay.
Most of the time, the unit of government has already contacted us about possible sale dates, but because of the way and the history of these projects and making sure that the approval would take place, we were waiting on the approval and then the request of underwriter or financial advisor in the unit of government to request a sale date at their preference that was available on our bond count, everyone else's sales included.
Is there any restriction on their sale date based upon the existence or completion of their current audit? I've heard that as a concern, and I just want to make sure we address that if we're going to approve the projects.
Right. So to your point, normally the units of government that come to the November and December agendas have to have their current audit in to be even heard. This, because this process and the discussions have been going on for months, we did not want that to be a barrier for this November agenda.
Thank you.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion on staff's recommendation to approve the $73 million LOBs for the multiple school projects, library, and senior center? Yes, ma'am. Madam Alder Holmes.
Just for clarification purposes, Commissioner Burns, were your questions satisfactorily answered?
I believe so, yes. I appreciate Ms. Wimmer entertaining my inartfully presented question, but I got the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right. For approval of Cabarrus County, the $73 million LOBS application, Butler, Holmes. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Turn it back over to Jennifer for the $78 million LOBs.
Thank you. The second application before the commission is the county is requesting $78 million in limited obligation for 3 school projects. Although the county has not been able to provide the required documentation that supports the cost of these 3 projects, county staff have indicated that the final guaranteed maximum price contracts will be available in December and January. LGC staff is ready to present these items to the commission with a recommendation for approval as soon as these final GMPs are provided, and we anticipate that to be in the February agenda.
Question. You have questions? There are preliminary GMPs are part of the package for these 4 projects on this package. And is it true that preliminary GMPs would have been acceptable if this was a bond anticipation note or a drawdown program? Would we have accepted that type of contract?
At the time that most bond anticipation note contract or applications come in, they would not have final guaranteed maximum prices. Okay. So to answer your question, that would be a possibility.
And I'm just trying to explore a few things. If in a guaranteed maximum price contract, there is a provision for a renegotiation of the scope if the price ends up exceeding the GMP, usually in a GMP contract. So it's final, but it could be not final if the parties all agree on a change in scope, right? Do y'all anticipate that when you approve or when you look at GMP projects that it might end up being more than that? And what's the difference between that and how a PGMP works?
Okay. 2 parts of your question. Most of the time when the units of government come to us with a final GMP and there is a question of, if there's a scope change. Most of the time that question is asked during the time of the review, and the decision has been made already at the local unit and the local level that there will be no scope. Like they have at the final GMP, they have determined their scope. So any unforeseen changes that would be needed after they break ground or anything like that would be minimal. And we ask how they would be able to take care of that overruns with cost. And the unit of governments provide us with an answer of internal funding. So it would not be in or the amount of debt or request would be changed. It would be the amount that has come to be presented on the application.
Okay.
Did you
I have a question,
yes,
but I don't know who to ask it to. Nobody's sitting up here.
We have lots of folks. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to come up, any other county commissioner that's here. Any county commissioner for Cabarrus County is welcome to come up, please.
It's 4 out of 7.
We have Commissioner Kenny Workman, myself, Chairman Steve Morris, Commissioner Chris Meesmer, and Brian Cohn, Director of Architecture and Planning for our school system.
I've learned a new phrase from this booklet that you all put together, and that value engineer to reduce. Is that what I think to me that means that if where you don't have the guaranteed contract, but you have a PGMP, that if it ends up coming more, you are going to do exactly what she said, the equivalency of, by reducing the scope rather than increasing it, and or find a way to pay additional funding. Is it the same process as Ms. Whitmer just talked about?
And to answer your question 2 ways, no, you would not be finding ways to fund additional expenses through the value engineering process. The value engineering process reduces the scope, the cost overall, not necessarily by cutting square footage. You may change materials out, go from one type of flooring to another type of flooring that saves money. You go through that process through all the different bid packages that are part of these projects. That's value engineering. That's how you get to a workable number if you exceed what the approved budget is.
Has this happened before?
Value engineering? Yeah, we've done down in Wilmington on that library. Yeah.
What direction does it normally go in?
Goes down. Value engineering always goes down.
Scope adjustments go up.
Yeah.
Or you can reduce scope. That's another way to value engineer projects, to reduce scope. If you are, typically that's a larger chunk of value engineering when you start reducing the scope of work, because you're cutting something out of the job altogether, as opposed to just valuing what a, correct, as opposed to just valuing.
But just doing it less expensively.
Yes, ma'am.
Secretary Marshall, in Wilmington on that library, they were gonna have decks going out where you'd overlook the river and you'd sit and read books. Be pretty cool, pretty slick. Well, the decks were taken out, and that's what kept bringing the cost down. And there's some people wish the decks had been remained. There's some people find that the decks are gone. And that's as simple a term as
Somebody with a deep
I just
pocketbook,
reduced the cost of the project to make
a contribution to put the decks up.
Typically, when things are cool in our industry, they're expensive.
Something that I would like to add to address some of the comments is, at the last commissioner meeting.
By yourself for the record, so we.
My name's Chris Meismer, Cabarrus County Commissioner. At the last commissioner meeting that was held, it's a 5-member board, and it was voted on unanimously to approve. It was a little over $5 million worth of cash to keep this project on a timeline. Because we knew that we're still waiting on the final GMPs to come in. So we were assured at that meeting from the school system that if this application is not approved today, that they feel confident with the cash that we had approved at last commissioner meeting, that we will still be on the timeline to open the school on time. So that was accomplished at the last meeting. I will say with the GMPs, since we're so near to getting these GMPs, this guaranteed maximum pricing is really truly a protection to the Cabarrus County taxpayer. It's a protection to the Cabarrus County Commission Board, and also protection to the Cabarrus County school system, because we'll know exactly our price point. If this is approved with, I thank you very much for the approval of the last applications. I don't think any of us in this room are against school funding at all, myself included. What the discrepancies come down is to the funding mechanism and the GMPs versus preliminary GMPs. And if this board approves, if this commission approves the financing with preliminary GMPs, and we get down the road and there is an overage, then we have a financial situation that we're going to be. And I understand the value engineering. However, if we get into a situation where it's 5 or 10 million over, we can't value engineer ourselves out of that. So I know they're working on the final GMPs, and that's going to be important for transparency for the Cabarrus County taxpayers, and also, like I said, protection for everyone involved, that we'll know the exact number of what this is going to cost.
Yeah, the preliminary GMP is the number that it's going to be. It will not exceed that number. That is the cost of the project, and it will not go north of that.
And that is in place at this time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I would also add that with the two factors, and of course the action that Commissioner Meismer just referred to that was approved by our board at the last meeting, was to try to keep this project on schedule. We had, of course, hoped that it would have approved prior to now. And fortunately, we had the opportunity to come back at this meeting and talk about it. But in the last item that was just approved, and thank you for that, we have a proposed sale date in November for those bonds. That has been approved by our underwriters and the other folks involved in the process. To break this apart into, and as Mr. Cohn indicated, we have the maximum price that these projects will be. If we break that apart into two separate fundings, then the figures that I have received indicate that that'll be about a $500,000 expense, additional expense to the taxpayers of Cabarrus County. In the associated fees that go with that debt issue by breaking it into two separate issues, And that, of course, that is in addition to any escalation and cost and of bids and so forth, which could occur by delaying that process. So we would strongly hope that these projects would be approved to go forward today. In addition to that, I think the primary reason that we are looking at preliminary guaranteed maximum contracts is because all of these items were intended to be part of a draw program with bands, and that application was presented, I think, 6 months ago. At that time, when we received feedback from staff that they would not wish for us to bring forward a draw program, that's when we changed the list of projects that we wanted to approve. We have several projects that have been removed from that list because of the fact how far we were into the project. We have another elementary school that is a significant need that will have to come back to this body in a separate request. And we have a public safety training facility that was included in that draw program. That was a collaboration between the municipalities in our counties. Our two largest municipalities have already included funding in their budgets, so we're going to have to go back and extend that project out a little further. In addition to that, the reason that we were going forward in that fashion was because we've had two successful draw programs in the past that have worked very well. When we got information back from LGC staff that they no longer desired to work with us on those draw programs, the comment were made, you were notified 2 years ago that we were not going to approve these programs going forward. We have requested from staff copies of that notification. We have not yet received it. The only information we can find in our communications that referenced, and it doesn't reference that at all. I think the email from March 25th, 2022, and this was from Sharon Edmondson in this office. She says, in addition, we understand you plan to do another draw program in 2 to 3 years. You will need to take out all projects that are part of the 2022 draw program in the 2024 permanent financing, which this board approved 2 meetings ago. And all future draw programs need to be structured in the same way. So that's the reason we were proceeding in that fashion. So we have tried to speed up that process with the cooperation of our school system, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Louder, and getting that documentation together. So we would strongly encourage you to approve this request today, and I'm happy to ask any other, answer any other questions you might have. We have a number of other people with us today. If you have questions in different area, we have the assistant superintendent of our school system here with us today, our financial advisors, our county manager, assistant county manager, and finance director. So I hope that.
Mr. Chairman, you made a lot of statements and some assertions, and I'm going to give our staff an opportunity to defend what they understand about what you said.
Certainly.
The first statement you made about trying to present the application for the limited obligation bans. There were communications from myself directly to your financial advisors 2 months before your application for the bans came in. At the time that the discussions were started with the county staff about the 2022 ban takeout, and that was in April. And your application came in June, July timeframe for the 2024 bans, and that came directly from me on behalf to your financial advisors because at the time that is who was communicating with the local government commission staff on those transactions. Going into your next statement of the success of the band programs, I would challenge that successful is subjective. Staff looked at the 2020 bands, the 2022 limited obligation bands for Cabarrus County, and on only one particular project that was actually rolled for purposes of extending the maturity of a large project, which was the courthouse. Based on the numbers that the county staff and the financial advisors provided to us back in 2020 and 2022, the courthouse project alone was a 30% increase in the construction cost alone. So not taking into account any interest over that time frame, the construction cost increased 30%. So the original estimates and the preliminary GMP's estimates were $100 million. And the last statement that we had was $130 million cost for the courthouse, and that came from your staff in an in-person meeting. We've tried to verify those costs that were drawn down for the 2020 and the 2022 bands on the takeout, and they vary. And we have requested information to make sure that we're accounting for every draw that the county did for all the projects across the board. And we're still missing some of that information that the county was to provide. I think that's what I have on those two statements.
We requested that information on the draw programs. I believe we have some, but the county has not provided the other information we requested.
Ms. Wimmer, that 20 and 2022 you're referring to on the courthouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Alder Holmes.
Alder Holmes, yes, ma'am.
In addition to mentioning 2022, was there also reference to 2020?
Correct. The first limited obligation band draw program that Cabarrus County entered into was in 2020. It came to the February 2020 meeting of the Local Government Commission. And at that time, it was a portion of the courthouse, and because they had separated the contracts into 3 different GMPs that were staggered. So at the time, it was a portion of the courthouse and 2 schools.
And there was a 30% increase in the cost.
30% increase in the projections for just the courthouse project from the time that the 2020 band program started and the information of a closeout of that project cost.
Okay, so what I'm seeking clarification regarding is in 2020, there was a worldwide pandemic. So were the costs due to increased labor, increased the cost in general? Was that isolated to Cabarrus County, for example? I'd love to hear from staff as well as from members from Cabarrus County as to the justification or the rationale of what happened regarding that 30%, and was this an outlier?
So to Auditor Holmes, this is Jennifer. We have seen across the board construction cost increase during that time frame. The point in the bands versus an actual hard construction contract is that the variation of when things actually go to bid on a band program, they might not be certain. So if it was approved in February and then the construction contracts were bid out in May, June, or further into the pandemic, yes, across the board, we saw increases. The difference is with this model, basically the financing was in pieces. And when you have a final GMP, it was either locked in prior to, some units of government during that time saw the cost increases, and so they pushed pause on their projects if they could, or if they needed to, they just waited it out, and then saw as the pandemic moved on, they went ahead and knew that the construction costs were increasing because it was across the board in all types of projects.
Follow-up?
Can I say something, sir?
Hang on just a second. Before I call on you, just to level set where we are. It's my understanding the county itself asked for this application to come to us in two different pieces.
That is correct.
Okay. So there was the implication that, we forced that on you, at least that's not the case. You asked us to be considered separately.
Absolutely, we did. I think through discussion, as was presented, we had 12 projects. 9 of those, staff had indicated that they felt like we had complied with what they had asked for. So we certainly wanted to not jeopardize approval of those projects by any questions that might exist with these 3 very important projects.
And to level set again, so this board just approved those 9 projects that are cured, is not the right legal term, but are cured, so to speak. The requirements they look for in order to approve an application, well, all those items in that first thing that this board just approved, all those were checked. So all the boxes were checked. The second piece, if I heard staff correctly, they're not recommending until all the boxes are checked. But I hear from the board that there was unanimous approval, which I think is unusual, for the county to expend money up to $5 million on the development of these projects that are in the second piece that are no longer approved, that are not yet approved, subject to another approval of this board.
Yeah, I will add one thing. The board approved funding to keep one of those 3 projects on schedule. The other 2 are currently on hold.
So,
my questions have been answered.
yes, ma'am. Alder Holmes?
My question has been answered.
Okay, thank you. So, since I've observed the staff and how much attention the staff has put into Cabarrus County this year on multiple projects, I want to applaud them. I want to applaud them for taking the parts of the project, given the laws, the regulations they have to abide by, and coming to this board with approval of what we just approved. And I also applaud them on tapping the brakes on the second piece. And you object to that?
No, I very much appreciate the efforts of the staff, and my comments were basically an explanation of our change in direction and the reason that we have that. As I understand it, the main sticking point is that word preliminary. in the guaranteed maximum contract. Our folks have assured me that the preliminary guaranteed maximum price is a set guaranteed maximum price. And the question that I've asked, and I'm sure that might be reasonably asked by others, is then why is it necessary to include preliminary on the beginning of that? And I think that is strictly a function of the bid process timing. Mr. Cohn can certainly explain that better than I can, but that otherwise, as far as our commitment to the guaranteed maximum price, we have that in place.
Secretary, then I'll get to Mr. Burns.
So we have no doubt that you are confident in that, in your PGMP. But what you're asking essentially us to do is deviate from our standard process. Jennifer's been here for a long time. We have other staff who's been here a long time. This is our standard process, so we're not deviating from our standard process at all in requesting or requiring that final cost analysis. We would actually be deviating from our standard process if we were to recommend approval for your projects based on the documentation you've provided to us. So we're just addressing this application as we would all applications, staff analysis, making sure, again, Auditor Holmes, a few meetings ago, you talked about the application form. This is a standard request on the application form for these items as well as other items. So I just want to clarify that. I'm sure you're comfortable with that PGMP, and we don't doubt that you are. But for our threshold, what we're tasked with as staff is ensuring that those findings in statute are met, and we need that documentation, that final documentation, in order to be able to recommend that those findings are met. So I think that might be one of the differences in how we're viewing this. We have a job with certain requirements that have to be met, and that's what we're looking for.
Mr. Burns.
I'm still kind of tied up in the change from a drawdown program to LOPs, or the way they're being done now. And I understand that if this had always been an LOB as it's now presented to you, then it would represent a change in your process to approve it with a PGMP instead of a GMP. Had it been brought to you as a drawdown ban program, then you would have relied on a PGMP in order to recommend approval. Is that fair to say? Knowing that the rule that we no longer authorize those for counties, and I do have a follow-up on that, but there's nothing about a preliminary GMP that would say, oh, you can't rely on that for a ban program either.
I understand your question.
Okay, good, because I may not understand how to say it.
Currently, there are only two other counties in the entire state that use limited obligation bans for general fund projects. I know we talked in one meeting about the difference of the sources of payment of the bans, so if they were revenue or something else. But there's only two other counties that use that, and both of which are in a different debt model.
Would Wake County be one of those? Because I know I voted for these repeatedly.
Correct. Their debt model has, they have a different debt model, and of course it is the unit of government's choice on how they do that. But to your point, Wake County has a set LOB, and then 2 years later it does a general obligation bond. So it switches with the type of funding. So whereas Cabarrus County in this instance had only limited obligation on bans to be taken out and then layered with another band with the takeout like that, Wake County has done limited obligation bans to be taken out, then a general obligation bond, and vice versa. Now, the second part of your question, so the bans which Wake County, for that example, does is a set number, let's just say $200 million. When they come and take it out with the however many projects they have, it is a project list of however many, 50 projects. And because they are doing that in tandem with their PAYGO capital plan, they take out 200 for all of those projects, and their projects are, if any of them, there's some differential of the PMGP, that's it. And then they take care of any outstanding things with PAYGO. So it is, they also have a band draw, so we get information. So timely, as in every time they take a draw, we are copied so that we can verify when they come. We know basically when they're going to expend their money the same time they do. So it's not a question for us of have we spent this money, because we verified on a timely manner that that is what correctly they need.
Is there anything about these particular projects and this second request that we're faced with today that makes you think that Cabarrus County would not be able to repay it on schedule and according to the terms of the bonds?
On the limited obligation bonds?
It's a triple A county.
With
and an
the
A plus on some of them.
the GO bonds. Based on the debt practices previously, when there has been cost overrun on their debt portfolio and the way that their debt is kind of managed, the amount of PAYGO, they're using a debt model that decreases their flexibility. So when the $5 million was put towards the continuation of this one project, most other entities have that flexibility to use in cases like this. If they need to, the timing works out better for them, and at the time that they have all their financing documents in place, and it has happened multiple times to this body for other counties, that their financings are split because they don't have that documentation at the same time. Yes, it would save money on issuance cost if you do it together, and most of the time entities try to do that. It doesn't always work out. But to answer your question, we can't see that that is going to be a possibility, that the cost won't increase, and the flexibility there to make the PAYGO payment to make up the difference, that's questionable.
Is there anything, may I have one other follow-up? Thank you. Your questions, your answers are excellent and very detailed, and I appreciate all the work that all the staff have done. I'm trying to dig in and figure out where we are, because what's at stake here is whether or not schools are going to be built for a growing school system that needs these schools. I don't think there's any dispute about that.
Absolutely not.
And so it is important to me that this body not exercise its responsibility without overstepping its bounds and without really preventing work that needs to be done for reasons that may not justify preventing that work. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm trying to get to. Is there anything, we're looking at GMPs in January or February. Are you seeing any signs, have you received any information that indicates that the GMP is going to come back exceeding the PGMP that you've currently been provided? In 2 months' time, because the consequences of us delaying this until that point are severe because of when bonds have to be issued and when they have the schedule that they have to follow. I think it really would put a dent in the construction schedule if it doesn't go forward now. That's what we've been informed. That's what this piece of paper, that's what their little portfolio shows us. So that's what I'm trying to dig down on here.
So in order to come out of the ground, you would have to have certain permits and everything. So that wouldn't be a delay if they were going to pay for all the pre-construction cost with PAYGO money or cash, if you will. For the, not speaking of this project, but of other projects that we have had conversations on today and last week for other projects, they are still coming in over estimates.
Within 2 months of the estimate?
Yeah.
Because if the estimate's in January and it's GMP and it comes in above that.
Most of the governments now are not, are keeping updated estimates in the last 18 months. None of them sit stale for very long because of the change in the market.
May I ask the gentleman here a follow-up on that? Sir, you're with the school system, is that right? Can you tell us why you're confident that you're not going to exceed the PGMP? Because I think that's a key question, and I'd like to know the answer to that.
So to backtrack a little bit to the reference to the 2020 and the 2022 draw programs, you were referring to the courthouse project, which, yes, as Alder Holmes said, went through COVID, the worldwide pandemic. Costs were escalating on a weekly basis, if that. I think it's worth noting we had 2 school projects, one in that 2020 draw program and then one in that 2022 draw program, which we provided in probably May of those years before they were going to borrow the money, the anticipated GMPs, and if we want to reference them as pre-GMPs, we can. We didn't actually formally have that language written into those contracts, but we provided them with that total project budget cost. And both of those projects came in under budget when we completed them going through the pandemic. That is why I'm sure with the process that we have gone through, we have stayed consistent that the pre-GMP numbers we are providing you will not be exceeded. And in both of those projects I just referenced, they were within 5%. Actually, we gave money back to the county on those projects.
Was that the Roberta Road?
Mr. Meisner.
So, with the band project, we, what the direction, I guess, that we have received, with the band project, we're trying to clean that up a little bit because we don't want to be having financing in multiple years and multiple times. So, with this GMP, if this is not approved today and we have the actual GMPs coming in January and February, if we come to before this commission beginning of next year, we will have a clear, transparent number to go by. We run in, I know with this Culture and Web replacement school, there's this underground spring on that property. I'm not sure if that has been part of your analysis, and so create some issues. And as I said, the cash that has been forwarded is going to keep us on that timeline for that school to get us through until we get the actual GMP numbers. But like I said, with the band program, we have been given direction not to do that, and also too, it makes sense because we don't want financing pieces in different years and then not have a true accurate number of what a project will cost the county.
Yes, Mr. Philbeck. I'm sorry, Mr. Philbeck, can you let the Secretary comment? Thank you.
Just back to the PGMP2 again, obviously with the findings, it's the adequate and not excessive. So obviously with the PGMP2 again, it could establish that you're not going to spend more than that, but it could be that amount is actually potentially on the flip side excessive. Again, none of us really know.
Just to clarify, what would be excessive?
Oh, she's the Secretary of the Board.
Oh, I was just trying to understand.
She finished.
Okay, my apologies.
If the amount, we're looking for a final amount because the finding is both adequate and not excessive. So if you're confident the PGMP won't go higher, there could be the possibility that actually the GMP would come in lower, which means that you're taking on more debt than you need to, which is why the finding is for both of those items, adequate and not excessive. So just to clarify the difference again between the PGMP and the GMP, that's all.
Mr. Philbeck.
So one of the things that is obvious to me is that there is some confusion and misunderstanding somewhere about the bond anticipation notes being, from Cabarrus County's point of view, taken off the table late in the game. And therefore, that's why we're at PM. We've got the P in front of the guaranteed maximum price. And
this seems to me like we're kind of in a place I don't think we've ever been in, where what they thought they could do from their understanding, they were told earlier this year they couldn't, and so they backed up and gone the direction to get to do it in lobs. And I don't know, it just seems to me like it's unfair to Cabarrus County if we can't figure out a way to make it work, because I think there's been confusion. I'm not blaming anybody, but they have one understanding, and our staff has certainly explained well their understanding. But to me, that is an issue that really somehow should not have occurred.
Either one of you.
Again, I think Jennifer communicated early, even before the application was submitted, about staff's concerns with the county's use of draw programs in the past. And so, and that did go back to concerns about the county's use of draw programs date to 2022, correct?
Inclusive, the whole 2020, 2022, and the takeout of 2024. And like I had answered Mr. Burns' question, there's only 2 other counties that use this type of program currently, the program. And then they, as I said, they have different information and more information that they provide continuously to let us know the project scope and, progress on that. The rest of the counties that finance schools do it in a, there's many ways to do that. They, pay for part of it as cash. They pay for part of it as limited obligation bonds. They do one project at a time. They, when things are ready to go, we do not hold up anything in order for some, these projects to go forward. There's multiple ways. Like I said, there's not one size fits all financing for anyone in the state.
Mr. Philbeck, you have a follow-up?
Well, my point is just that I think that there's confusion. I'm not doubting either side that they have a different understanding, but I don't think we would be here if Cabarrus County would have not thought they could have done this using the band program. And I just wish we could find a way to make it go ahead and happen.
Mr. Philbeck, as the chair of the board, and we have found a way, a path forward. 9 out of the 12 projects that Cabarrus County has brought to us were approved just less than an hour ago. They have set, the staff's recommendation is for a timeline for the rest of the items that they still don't have the information that they require of every other applicant for the county to give that to the staff. In addition to that, and then I'll call on Alder Holmes, there's some other information, if I'm correct or incorrect, that they've asked for an analysis of, which we still don't have. So you may construe it as a misunderstanding, but this has been going on a lot longer than it's being implied, in my opinion. And that's why the staff made their thumbs up recommendation on the first piece and tapping the brakes slightly on the second piece. Period. That's the staff's recommendation. Alder Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From my perspective, we have more information about this financing request than we did the Cumberland County request. My understanding per our last meeting was that everything was ready to go and that we were prepared to vote on this matter. I would like to make the motion that I would like to move for approval of this request and have a vote accordingly.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We have 3 county commissioners here. Obviously, y'all have lived this. I think we've heard from the chairman. Would you like to say anything? Okay.
Let me make sure I
Yes,
understood
ma'am.
something.
Can I pause a moment? Can you read your recommendation, and then we'll call on Secretary Marshall.
The second application, $78 million. The county has indicated that final guaranteed maximum price will be available in December and January. LGC staff is ready to present these items to the commission with a recommendation for approval as soon as these final GMPs are provided, and we anticipate that to be presented at the February meeting.
And Secretary Alter Holmes, was your motion to support what she just read or not support what she just read?
Not support what she just read and support the request from Cabarrus County to approve these final 3 items.
Thank you. We have a second.
Yes, sir.
Alter.
And I believe there was a second.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Do I understand that if they don't come in, you're going to
Value engineer.
value engineer the project to the amount of money we approve?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the case.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Meisner.
I will say, if this is not approved today and as we're going through this process of getting the GMPs in place, we have a new commission board come in, new school board coming in, I will still retain my seat. But I assure you that before we would approach this board again in February, that we would have every financial documentation in hand needed for this to be approved. So that way, as I said, for the transparency of taxpayers, I will ensure that we have every piece of documentation before we would approach this board again. I know this puts you guys in a precarious situation with Cabarrus County, approaching you multiple times. As I said, I would ensure in February that everything would be in place.
If not before.
If not before, that's correct.
Oh, no, I was just saying that I understood my second to be for the motion that the auditor placed. That's all I was saying. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to vote for that motion, and I've told the chairman how much I admired how he writes the county. I've watched that. But how our staff has a set of guidelines to go by. And what are we going to do if Asheville comes in here after, or whatever it is, Charlotte, and said, well, you did it for Cabarrus County. And then it just starts waffling all over the board, in my judgment. And I'll tell you, Mr. Chairman, I got great respect for how you run in the county. I think that was evident. I came right out of the chute and supported us approving these 9. But I cannot go, these are the standards that we have set for the 4 years that I've sat here. And for us to make this one-time change is, if another county, and we got 100 counties, we've got hundreds of municipalities, we've got all these hospital boards, all these districts, all these centennial. I mean, hell, how many entities come before us, isn't it?
1,200.
1,200 damn entities that are here before us for something. And we've got to have some set of guidelines. And Mr. Alter Holmes and John, I respect y'all's that motion, but I think we would be making a mistake to veer away from our standards where we apply one standard to all the time. And it isn't that life or death deal. I mean, if it's 2 or 3 months and if it's another $500,000, you're not broke. y'all can find the money, but I can't support the motion because I just think we're making a mistake to veer away on a one-time exemption on something that can be fixed in a couple of months.
Okay. Staff have anything else to offer? I have a legal question. Since we're deviating from the standards of the, yes, Alter Holmes.
And when I want to address a couple of comments. For starters, $500,000 is absolutely a significant amount of money when you're a taxpayer. So I don't want us to disregard the increasing cost. Also, as to the misunderstanding or the confusion, I think it is very clear that at some point the goalpost was moved, that the county had provided multiple times different sets of information, and I am surprised to get here today and learn that there's now something that they hadn't provided at this point after hearing this item, quite frankly, several times over the past few months. And in terms of information provided, I am not aware of a similar request that we have approved this past year that has provided the depth of information that Cabarrus County has provided. And so because there's a motion on the table and a second, and it seems that we have completed discussion, I request that we vote accordingly.
Alder Holmes, we will vote, but I'm going to ask my legal counsel a question. If we break standard and do something different with this application that we have treated other people who apply for the local government commission, are we liable?
Well, I'm going to stand in for Cindy. That's a very hard question to answer. That's just very broad.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm trying to ask the question in case it happens. Well, Cindy.
Mr. Burns wants to say something while I think.
I'm not going to get in the middle of the chairman and his legal counsel, but I'm not sure that the standard that is applied is not the standard that the staff applies. We'll be held responsible for our decision as the commission. And if we make a decision as individual commissioners, this is what I would submit. We have to make a decision for our own vote whether this particular application meets each of the statutory considerations, one of which is adequate or excessive, adequate and not excessive. I understand the recommendation that's been made by staff, but ultimately it is my decision. Otherwise, we would just have a staff. It's our decision. And so we make a decision whether or not each of us thinks it is adequate and not excessive. And if we can justify that decision, it would be hard to have liability to other parties that we decided it was not adequate and not well. We made the opposite decision. So that would be my opinion, but I'm not your lawyer.
Mr. Philbeck.
I reread 159, 151 on those 6 item things, and I don't see how we're violating anything if it passes based on those, the 5 of those 6 apply. They're not going to have a tax increase. So that's just, I don't see how it would be a violation of law. It might be a violation of a policy, but policy is not law.
That's correct.
Thank you. Motion second on the table. Cindy.
Your opinion, Cindy. Sorry.
If you were violating the statutory findings, if you were not following the statutory findings, that would be a problem. If you are, the guidelines that the staff uses, they can evolve. They've been pretty standard for a couple decades. I don't know what, I'm not evaluation staff, I'm legal staff on the issues that staff has with the manner in which this particular unit has rolled. That was in the email about maturity dates, standards of maturity dates, shall we say. That's not my role, but I don't think you're not liable for the guidelines. I would lean towards what you were saying. That's what I was thinking before you spoke.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's helps to have lots of legal. I don't think you're responsible for anything other than statutory requirements.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. The motion is to go against staff's recommendation regarding this application. It's been seconded. And with that, the clerk will call the roll.
So this is the second application on the agenda, the 78 million, 3 projects, lobs for Cabarrus County. Motion to approve the application, or to put it the opposite, Holmes and Burns.
Madam General Counsel, just to state for the record, I am not voting against staff's recommendations, but am voting in support and approval of Cabarrus County's report.
Yes.
For the record, the staff has recommended not approving this application. You're making a motion to approve the application. That's what the minutes will reflect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Application, Holmes and Burns. All right, Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
No.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
No.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
No.
Thank you. That's 5 yes, 4 no. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Audience, if you'll just hang with us for a few more things. We've got a very important presentation by the municipality. Go ahead.
Members, attachment, the next item on the agenda is attachment G. It is a resolution to modify the guidelines for successful appeal. Really pivoting topics here now. We're going back to Senate Bill 299, which allowed the LGC to direct the withholding of a portion of sales tax distributions for units that did not submit their audits within 1 year of fiscal year end. 2023, as y'all know, is the first year we implemented it. We did bring to the commission last December guidelines for successful appeal under which a unit can make a successful appeal, and just sort of an asterisk as I'm talking here. In this case, when I say unit, it's only county or municipality. It's not any of the other types of units and public authorities we deal with. So we implemented it for the first time this year. The commission voted to withhold 5 units, sales tax withholdings. So first I wanted to give you a brief update on where we are with those 5 units, and then talk about some recommendations we're making as we implement the provisions of this law next year. For the 5 units that had sales tax directed to be, a portion of their sales tax to be withheld, Kendra Boyle, the Director of Fiscal Management Section, members of our coach team and I visited 4 of those 5 towns, make sure they were aware of the implications, make sure they had copies of the letter. We're seeing some progress with each, but we remain concerned with several of them about their ability to meet their requirements, again, under law for fiscal management practices. Black Creek has not submitted an annual audit since 2019. They're now missing essentially 5 years of annual audits. The due date for audits was October 31st. So given this latest due date, Black Creek is now 5 years outstanding. We did present to them. We talked to them about their late audits and the importance of those for transparency, for accountability to their taxpayers. And we were informed that the town was run like a business and they had money in the bank, so they were not that concerned, that everything was okay, essentially. So we continue to work with them. They have hired on a new bookkeeper who's already jumped in and is working on those books to try to get them ready for audit. And the town is actually also working to get a new audit firm under contract for that 2020 audit. We also visited with the town of Coleraine. At the time the issue, the noncompliance notice was issued, they were behind on the 22 and 23 audits. They did submit the 22 audit, so that's good. They caught up there. They've had a lot of turnover. They had 5 clerks in 18 months. And there was also a lot of confusion about the fact that they didn't appeal. That's the unit that y'all chose to take action on based on the fact that they did not appeal. They're working, though, to get caught up on their 22, and is their town clerk has been very receptive to our coach team's assistance, and they're working with us closely. I should note, as Treasurer said, the League of Municipalities is here to provide a update on their activities, but we've been in communication with the League on all of these units, and so they're aware of all of these concerns. We've also talked to Littleton and Speed. We have continuing concerns with Speed and their ability to meet their requirements. I did want to recognize Lucama. At the time their April 1st notice was issued, they were 2 years behind on audits. They actually got both audits submitted before withholding could even begin. Lucama has managed to submit 5 years of audits in just under 18 months. So since June of last year, they made this a priority. They got 5 years of audits in, and to the point that the direction by the LGC to withhold portion of sales tax distributions didn't even come into being because they were able to get all their audits in before that time. So shout out to the we will be bringing to you, because of our concerns about the town of Speed, we will be bringing you a resolution next month to look at initiating the process for compelling them to hire outside help to help them get caught up. We remain very, very concerned with what's going on down there, so we'll be bringing that in December. All that brings us to the resolution. Based on our experience with last year's implementation and with how units have caught up on their audits since then, we are recommending some changes to the guidelines. Last year, the guidelines, and if you have the resolution in front of you, number 1 is changing. If you'll recall, last year, a guideline for successful appeal could be met if this was the year that the audit, the year that the notice was issued for, that was the only audit missing, and they weren't more than a year late after fiscal year end for the previous 4 years. This year, staff is recommending to broaden that and just say, if this is the only audit that's missing, that the unit will qualify for that guideline for successful appeal and not do the 4-year look back, because what we want to focus on, quite honestly, is the units that are now 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years behind, and use this law for those purposes. It's not good that these units don't have their audits in within a year, but to best use, I think, what this law is meant to do, we want to focus on those other units. So essentially what this resolution is doing is, in essence, broadening that guideline for successful appeal by making it applicable to any county or municipality that this is the only missing audit. We've also added some language. Numbers 2 and 5 are new, basically requiring that even if a unit meets the guideline for successful appeal, they need to provide an explanation and a plan for catching up. So make sure that we're getting that information. That allows our staff to assess why these delays are happening and how we can best support them, or what other changes we might recommend making. That's Secretary Marshall. Number 5 talks about a written appeal if the appeal is based on, quote, other good cause. It doesn't meet that guideline for successful appeal. Secretary Marshall, a few meetings ago, you were concerned that as the appeals came in, there was no good basis for you to make comparisons or understand the arguments they might be making. So we're incorporating here that LGC staff will develop some criteria and publish those criteria and that guidance so that local governments we can preemptively put out there information that we think is necessary for commission members to consider and compare those appeals. So those are the changes we are recommending that the commission makes with regards to the guidelines. These will be effective essentially for the next time the law is implemented. We'll post these prior to January 1st, and these will be effective when we implement for fiscal year 24 audits. So,
do I hear a motion to take staff's recommendation regarding the resolution and the guidelines?
So moved.
Secretary Marshall. Mr. Burns, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
This is attachment G, modifying guidelines on the successful appeals. That's Marshall Burns. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey. Aye. Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Follow.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Attachment H.
A brief vote, commission members. We are undertaking a decennial rules review. This resolution essentially just approves our staff's report, determining which of, basically we went through all of the rules applicable to the local government commission, and staff made a determination of whether or not they're still necessary or not. Staff's concluded that all the rules are still necessary. This process will continue for a number of years, but this is the very first step, just identifying essentially if any rules we determined were not necessary. Staff's not found that any of the rules in administrative code for the local government commission are not necessary at this time. So this vote is just to accept staff's report that we find that all of these rules are still needed.
Do I hear a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
move.
Motion by Mr. Marshall, second by Mr. Philbeck. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Let's see, Mr. Burns has stepped out for a moment. Okay, decennial rules determination, Marshall Philbeck. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Burns. Did you get a chance to review attachment H, decennial rules review?
I'm sorry, I had to step out.
All right, hang on. Treasurer Follow.
Aye.
That staff is recommending that we report all of our rules as necessary.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Attachment I.
I just wanted to recognize Tony Blaylock for pulling this together, but in the interest of time, I think if there's any questions, we could direct it, but Tony has compiled a list of all of the unofficial results of the bond referenda in November, because these are items you will be seeing coming before you for approval in the coming months. Tony, did you want to add anything?
Just that we had 14 local governments that had referenda. There were 27 separate items. 22 were approved, 5 failed. And I'll just mention that in Asheville, there were almost 50,000 folks that voted on the Asheville items which were approved. So the 4 that were defeated, Belmont, Cary had 2 items, Town of Zebulon had 1, and Chowan County had 1 that were defeated.
Tony and Councilwoman Hoffman, I hate to put you on the spot, but was the Guilford County sales tax on the ballot?
Yes, it was, and it was defeated. It did not pass.
That's the second time.
Correct.
Okay. So we approved the debt. The voters approved the debt, billions of dollars, but they did not approve the funding source to pay for the debt.
Unfortunately, that has been the case in quite a number of places. Alamance County also.
Just want to make sure.
Where was the other place? Alamance County a couple of years ago, the same thing. They approved bonds, but failed to approve the sales tax increase.
Thank you. You look great today, by the way.
Thank you.
Best dressed in the room. Next to Bill. We strive. Where do we strive? No votes necessary for that report. Thank you, Tony, for your patience and staying, for all the work that you do. And now we're really excited to, I hope the board members will stay with us. Attachment J, presentation by League of Municipalities. We have joining us Rose and Carla and Chris. And as they're coming up, I may go to Hollow Mountain's very, as you know, has been in distress recently, and just another town that probably has written checks it can't cash. So as what they're getting ready to say is highly important to what's actually going on in real time. So welcome, and we appreciate our partnership with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and members of the commission. Thank you for having us and for the invitation to come today. And the invitation was to present about our provision of services pursuant to some ARP or local funding we received from the General Assembly to help our cities and towns. Is that better? Very similar to the County Commissioners Association, our partners who were also invited will be coming at a later time. Our good partners that we work well with, very grateful for. We will be as brief as possible. We were very diligent and prepared to come before you because it's important to us and very important. We believe in what we're doing, but we will try to go rapidly. I do want to introduce who we've got with us just briefly. I'm Rose Vaughn Williams. I'm the Executive Director. I've been with the League just short of 10 years. And with me on my left is Chris Nida, who's been with the League for 15 years. He's the Director of Technical Assistance for Cities at the League and Municipalities and leads all our direct financial and operational technical assistance efforts, including those under these grants. He's also responsible to all of the fiscal analysis that we do, annual surveys and reports, revenue tracking that we do for cities. Undergraduate degree from Ohio Wesleyan and master's degree in public policy from Duke. On my right is Carla Obiol, who's the Chief American Rescue Plan Officer for the League. When this funding came through, we had to build a team. And we're very grateful that Carla is leading this team with Chris. She's the Chief American Rescue Plan Officer, formerly interim CEO and Vice President of Community Voice and Advocacy at the Foundation for Health Leadership and Innovation, where she led the North Carolina Rural Health Association, and also served as the first statewide director at another time for Care for Carolina, a statewide coalition to close the health insurance gap. She served for 33 years before that at the Department of Insurance, where she managed the Seniors Health Insurance Information Program, SHIP, and rose to Senior Deputy Commissioner for Consumer Assistance Group over 3 of the DOI's major divisions. Virtually, we have 3 people who are very important. Diane Seaford as the Deputy Director for Municipal Accounting Services at the League, longtime employee starting in the finance office of Cabarrus County and becoming the county's first budget officer. Later, 21 years at Bank of America in finance roles, finance officer at the end of her career for the town of Landis, where she helped restore a fiscal professional team to improve services and rebuild trust. And now she's our Deputy Director for Municipal Accounting Services over our accountants at the League and leads that effort. Also are Cindy Graham and Tracy Chestnut, who are on the ground field staff. Cindy in the central region of the state, Tracy in the eastern region of the state. Our western region rep could not be here today because of a death in the family of her parent over the weekend. I'll just suffice it to say these are longtime local government accounting specialists. That's our team. Briefly, I'll introduce the League of Municipalities. And we have a slide that, do I just say slide? And thank you for that slide. The League is a membership organization. We represent just about every city in the state of North Carolina, except for a few who may have gotten incorporated a long time ago and you didn't have to have as many services as you do now under the statute. We've been around since over 100 years, started off as a lobbying organization, joining voices together for the betterment of cities. The Powell Bill was among the first things that they did. We are run by a 33-member board that includes 3 managers, a clerk, and attorney, in addition to electeds. 500 cities and over 500 cities and towns. I'll just say briefly, as you know well, 40% of those towns have less than 1,000 people, 75% have less than 5,000 people, and only 9 of our towns have more than 100,000 people. Over half our towns also don't have a manager. So I just wanted to point that out. Counties each have a manager, and I'm jealous of my colleagues at the County Association. Over half our towns do not have a city manager. We are a membership organization providing services to our members. Next slide, as you can see on that next slide, including education programs for them, opportunities to convene, publications. We provide insurance. Back in the 80s, the private market was pulling back from insuring police officers and firefighters, people running into danger, ABC stores, etc. Advice and consultation from risk review to hiring and firing, to safety, to trying to prevent claims, risk control. Other training and professional development for our members, education, and this has been beefed up and increased greatly with these funds, which we'll talk about. And research and information, part of what Chris does, as well as communications to our members, what they need to know, when they need to know it, what's going on in the legislature, what's going on in the state, what's going on the local government commission, et cetera, trying to bring them the best information they can to serve the best. When cities and towns do well, the economy of the state benefits, and that's been proven over and over. And that's what we try to do. We are, as you can see, a membership organization. We are not a licensing board. So we're like the Dental Association provides these services and benefits, but it's the dental licensing board that can take away your license or discipline you. Same, I'm a lawyer, same thing with the bar, but we are an association that serves our members where they are as best we can. I'm going to turn now to Chris Nida to go directly to what we were asked to come and talk about, which is those services we are providing under the ARP funds.
Yeah, thank you, Rose, and thank you, Mr. Treasurer and members of the Commission for having us here today. If we can go to the next slide, I'll begin talking about these technical assistance services that we have been rolling out for much of the last couple years. These have been funded through the American Rescue Plan. I think many of you know that when the American Rescue Plan Act was passed federally in March of 2021, it appropriated what are called state and local fiscal recovery funds to state and local governments around the country. The state of North Carolina made the decision as part of its budget that was passed in 2021 to do something that, from what we have heard, is unique to other states around the country, and that is to appropriate a portion of its state ARPA funds directly to several organizations to provide technical assistance and additional services to local governments on the ground, the League being one of those, also the Association of County Commissioners and the Councils of Government. And so the League received the statutory directive along with the funds to provide technical assistance in ARPA administration and compliance, and also to provide financial software and assistance programs. And so we have taken this opportunity to address what we have seen and what we have identified as needs on the ground, try to bring resources and programs to our member cities and towns that they need to not only effectively manage their ARPA funds that they receive, but also to make their finances more resilient and provide them with the additional training and skill sets that they need to effectively manage their finances. So we'll talk more in detail about each of these items that are on the slide, but a very high level of what we are doing is upgraded accounting software and financial reporting systems. We're helping to fund and contract with bookkeepers, auditors, and others to provide financial support directly to members and additional financial training. In conjunction with that, cybersecurity, legal, communication, and grant services. And then the final piece, federal ARP compliance assistance. That is probably the piece that we'll spend the least time talking about today, but I will just note that we have field staff working directly with cities and towns on everything that comes along with compliance of receiving funds directly from the federal government. Rose mentioned how many small governments we have in the state. Many of them, when they received this direct allocation of federal funds, had never received a grant before or never received federal money before. And so we have staff that have made contact with all 521 governments in the state that received these local fiscal recovery funds through the state of North Carolina. Been working on the compliance side there as well. If we'll go to the next slide, I won't belabor the timeline, but just to say that, you know, these funds were appropriated to the League in the budget that was passed at the end of 2021. Budget had to be certified, grant agreements worked out, paperwork filed with the state of North Carolina. But we really began receiving these funds in kind of the late spring, early summer of 2022. And I think this is a great time to be coming to you and presenting and reporting on our progress, because we really just are a little short of our halfway point as far as this grant term goes. 2022 was spent, I think my inclination and the inclination of a lot of people who want to help cities and towns is get the money out the door as quick as possible, get the help as quick as possible. But we didn't design programs that were, grants to be sent out in the short term or Band-Aids to be put on problems. We really spent time in 2022 building the structure of a program that we hope will be sustainable and can continue to hopefully live on beyond the terms of the grant when the ARPA funds expire at the end of 2026. And so our services really began rolling out in earnest at the beginning of 2023, which again puts us just about at the halfway point. And we are very appreciative of the opportunity to be here talking today about what we've been able to achieve in that time and what we hope to be able to achieve by the end of 2026. The next slide, I just want to make the point that while we came into this with a plan in 2022 and 2023, we have been able to be nimble and adjust our services over time. Carla will talk more about some of those kind of adjustments or additional services that we have added along the way. Something like the devastation we've seen from Tropical Storm Helene in recent weeks. We have begun rolling out, kind of disaster recovery assistance in that area and anticipate that our financial services will be even more needed in those parts of the state. So as these additional challenges arise, we anticipate continuing to provide services and enhance our services as needed, because everything we have designed has really come in response to what our local governments have told us they need and the services that they desire at the local level. So the next slide, again, just gives you the very broad overview of what we were doing. And we'll spend the most time today talking about the software conversion and the accounting instruction and mentorship program. But we'll also spend some time touching on the financial training that we've been able to provide, the cybersecurity services, grant writing, legal services, and communications. I'll just make the larger point that we have hired a fantastic team of government professionals, government accounting professionals. All of these services are designed because our services are targeted at those smaller populations that Rose mentioned, those under 5,000, those under 1,000 in population. All of these services, whether they're provided directly by our staff or our contracted partners, the goal is to meet towns where they are. We are not asking these small towns to travel to Raleigh or to come stay overnight to receive a training or to learn a new software program. Our staff is out in the field working directly in these towns across the desk from people, sitting alongside them, helping them along as they deliver them these skills and these programs. And that's really been a big emphasis, because we know that these smallest towns with the fewest resources are the ones that are, not able to come to a multi-day training in one of the large urban centers of the state. And so that is a continued emphasis of ours. The next slide is just a graphic that kind of shows you the breadth of kind of our four most utilized programs: software conversion, legal services, grant writing, and the green is the accounting and mentorship program. So I hope this visualizes, just how widespread we've been able to deliver these services. Again, it doesn't, if I put all 521 non-entitlement units that we were working with ARPA compliance on, I think it would maybe render the map meaningless. But I hope that this gives you a good sense of the level of the breadth that we've been able to achieve just presenting these services statewide. So with that, before I turn it over to Carla, the next slide, I'm going to talk about our software conversion program, which was really the first program that we designed and rolled out as part of these grant-funded services. I think the need for government appropriate software and accounting software at the local level that performs government functions, it's a need that's been identified for some time. I was part of a project with the Treasurer's Office years ago that I think took a lot of early steps in this regard and identified this issue and did a lot of work toward this. And so when we received this funding to do financial accounting and software programs, we knew that helping put appropriate government software in place in small towns is something that we wanted to do. I mentioned building that foundation during 2022. There was kind of, before we really got in there and started converting software at the local level, had a couple processes going to make sure that we were doing this right and doing it the right way. One was surveying all of our local governments to determine who was interested in a new software system, who needed it at the local level, where were they on their accounting processes. Our staff did assessments of all those towns that responded to those surveys. You can see on the slide, we have 124 that have expressed interest to this point. So we knew right off the bat that there was going to be a need for this in local governments. At the same time we were doing that, we formed an RFP committee and put out an RFP for software providers to try to determine who our software partner would be, so that we were working with a provider that was already in the field and already providing government accounting software. Our RFP committee was made up of league employees, municipal officials. We had a representative from the treasurer's office on the committee, a financial professional from the COG on the committee. And so took those steps early on to make sure that we were working with the best software provider out there and serving the members that really needed the program at the local level. So we have been doing this since about early part of 2023. So far, we have fully completed 17 software conversions and are on track to do a total of 54 by the end of 2026. I wish software conversion was a simple process. I have heard of these in the local government. I sometimes think, it's not just kind of clicking the updates on your Windows before you shut down your computer for the night. I mean, this is transferring all of the government's account, all of the functions, the payroll, the utility billing, whatever it might be, to a new system. I've heard of these taking, upwards of a year in some places. Our staff has worked hard and streamlined this and got it down to a 4-month process. So we are planning to do 54 full conversions by the end of the grant period. We have a waiting list of at least 17 towns in the event that space opens up and there is capacity to do that. So we know there is the possibility for more. I want to turn, oh yes, please.
Is there something in there that flashes at them to get their audit done?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think the entire goal of all of the financial and the software goal provisions or the programs that we're putting in place is to get them audit ready and to keep them updated throughout the year. Our hope is that, one thing I was just going to mention was that along with this software conversion, we're also using a standard chart of accounts for every single municipality so that everybody that goes through the program has the same chart of accounts. All the expenses are going in the same place. All the revenues are going in the same place. We hope that if we do all 54 and continue the program on, that at some point there will be economies of scale where if auditors know what the reports look like coming from the software, if they know what the chart of accounts are, if it's common between municipalities, then maybe that can streamline the auditing process in these places, make it easier for these auditors who are struggling to stay in the local government business to do audits in a timely fashion. So that is, you're exactly right. That's a goal of the program and something that one of the pieces that we wanted to put in place with a standardized software system. We're also hoping it addresses some of the workforce issues. If people are using the same software, same chart of accounts, again, maybe there are opportunities where municipalities can share finance officers or individuals can go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We're hoping that commonality will really show some benefit once those economies of scale is achieved. And the final piece I'll mention is that the software is cloud-based. I think one thing that we learned from our members is a lot of them are operating their software on servers that are operating in-house or on computers that are in a town hall. And so if there is a disaster or anything were to happen, they can lose all of their records like that. A recent example, the town of Old Fort is in McDowell County, was hit extremely hard by Hurricane Helene. Right after the storm hit, they have gone through our software conversion program, so they are utilizing this software. Right after the storm hit, they reached out to our staffer who had worked with them and said, hey, we have all the payroll numbers for this week, but we have lost all our systems. We have no access to computers. We can't get a hold of anything. Because they had converted to our system and were in the cloud, our staffer was prepared and would have had the ability, if necessary, to put the payroll numbers in and run the payroll for that town so their employees could have got paid that week, even in the wake of disaster. So I think there are benefits like that and the others that I've mentioned that we will hopefully see as we get more and more of these units on the same software system. I'm going to turn it over to Carla Obial to talk more about the additional services that we're providing, but happy to take any questions at the end and hopefully we'll have time for that. But I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next slide. It's nice to be with all of you here today. I'm very enthusiastic about the work that we're doing at the League. I've been there a little over a year. My career's been spent working in rural North Carolina. I grew up in a rural community and I'm just delighted at the work we're doing with these very small towns. So I'll be brief but tell you about some of the fantastic work that we're doing. One is the Accounting, Instruction, and Mentorship Program, or AIM, and this is one of the newer service lines that we're offering at the League. In fact, you don't know what you don't know. So as we were going out working with software conversions with towns, we met many towns that really were satisfied with their financial software. They really didn't want to change, but they did have a lot of needs. And these are our smaller towns, usually less than 1,000, that needed assistance and guidance and education on the financial process and operations in the town. So that's why we decided that we would offer this mentorship program. The mentors that are part of AIM are League staff that are trained to go in and provide one-on-one assistance to towns. When we started the program, we utilized the unit assistance list as a tool to help us. What are the towns that would benefit most from this AIM mentorship, and work with Debbie and the coach team, and also from calls that we were receiving from towns that were really too small for software conversion, but they really expressed a need to have some assistance. So we initially identified 32 towns that we, by invitation, set up dinners across North Carolina and had elected officials and the town manager, the financial officer come in, and we talked to them about the AIM program and what we hope to accomplish, to give them some one-on-one education and training, and that we would also, depending on the situation with the town, we would help them with catch-up accounting and would also be willing to pay for one audit. And so most of the towns had a lot of interest in this. One thing that I'll talk about repeatedly is just getting the commitment of their time to participate in this program. So after meeting with them and towns consulting with the boards, we currently have 17 of those initial invites are in the AIM program. We have also identified 11 additional towns that we have invited to participate in the AIM program. The timeline is that, and we can go to the next slide, the timeline for AIM, we would like for a town to complete the program in 1 year, but of course, every town's going to be different. Some towns are going to go through the AIM training a lot quicker than others. It really depends on the staff and, quite honestly, the commitment. Our team has put together a training manual for the AIM. There are 12 chapters. This is kind of my show and tell. This is our AIM manual that the town receives. It's written very basically. It's really a how-to manual. In addition, we put together checklists for these towns. This is a monthly checklist. This is a daily checklist. If you are and many of our town clerks really function as financial officers, and they don't have a lot of formal training. These checklists are put together by very qualified folks that have worked in local government to help the staff each day. These are the things you need to do each day, each month, and here's your manual, your how-to manual. Different topics covered are basic accounting, revenues, billings, procurement. Again, it's very basic. There are exercises at the end, so the mentor and the town staff go through this. They meet once a month. Again, commitment is one of our biggest challenges, because many of these folks working in small towns, they wear a lot of different hats. So getting them to have that 1 or 2 hours a month to sit down with a mentor can be challenging, but they really are learning a lot, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. Towns will say, it's just good to know somebody's coming and we can ask questions to someone that's going to help us with these processes. We've learned a lot about towns. When we go in, we do an initial assessment and have basic questions like, are you up on your bank reconciliations? Oh, yes, we are. And Debbie, you know this. And then we get into it, and guess what? They're really not. So they're not really trying to deceive us. They think that they're doing their bank reconciliations accurately. So AIM is a service that we're very proud of, and we hope to, by grants in, which is 2026, to have 80 towns in our AIM program. We also plan for 2025 to have regional meetings where AIM towns can attend with one another. So town clerks, that are side by side in geographic closeness can talk about what they're learning, what they're doing. When the grant goes away and maybe staff is not readily available every month, the idea is that their colleagues in towns next by, they can talk with one another and work through this. Another goal of our AIM program is to put this information in the town. There's high turnover in our small towns in particular. So when we're in there and we're working in AIM, it's one person leaves and it sets us back. And so we start all over again. So we want to make sure that these manuals are in these AIM towns. So if they have a change in staff, there's still this how-to manual for the team that's there. Next slide. What are MASS and AIM challenges? Well, there are many. This is not easy work. This is very hard work, in fact, and it takes a lot of time and resources to provide the education that these towns so desperately need, whether it's training the towns that are doing software conversion, which are a little bit larger towns with larger staff, or the very small towns that are receiving the one-on-one mentorship. It begins with us having the trust of the town. So to be successful, the town needs to trust us. And I've personally visited a town where they're like, oh, are you going to look at all of my books? You're going to look at everything I'm doing. We're not going in there to be oversight. We're not regulators. We're educators. We're there to teach you what you need to know to be successful. Now, I think we all know that our goal is if we can help these small towns get off the unit assistance list, that is just cherry on top, right? And that's why we're paying for contractors to go in, get the books caught up, and also to pay for an audit. But it's not going to help if they get caught up and then they do what? They still don't know what they're to do moving forward. So the purpose of AIM is to help them get off the unit assistance list, but also get these towns going on a positive path so that they understand what they're doing. And that takes education of the boards too, and boards understanding the importance of being fiscally responsible and for the staff to have the training that they need. The boards, I didn't mention it, but boards have to approve either the software conversion or to be an AIM town. The board has to approve of that.
Can I interrupt? Because we probably will run out, not your fault, we'll probably run out of time as far as getting the board to adjourn as a quorum.
Okay.
So just because I think there's a few questions we have to y'all. So whatever you'd like to finish up covering, and thank you.
I'll just, do you want to go next, Rose, or me just go through these services a little bit quicker? I think I could do.
I love your passion. I just got adjourned.
I know. Thank you very much. So I'll just end with commitment is key. Getting the towns to commit with the time. The need is there. I think all of you know that. We've expanded our financial training to mid-sized towns. We conducted 5 across the state at places that are non-traditional sites for elected officials to attend. We hope to continue to expand that, and I will stop there. But other services that we're offering is cybersecurity services. Small towns in particular are targets for cybersecurity. We have an advisor that is doing assessments and analysis with towns. Things as simple as having password policies. So very simple stuff. It's not too difficult. We also, through a contractor, offer grant services. We have helped towns written about 61 different grants. The COGS do this as well, so we're trying to coordinate with the COGS and not duplicate the services. through Parker Poe contractor. We've offered legal services. That has really kind of quietened down. That helped folks in towns with their American Rescue Plan projects, writing ordinances, helping them with RFQs. That was highly utilized and appreciated. And then last but not least, and I'll turn it to Rose, we offer communication services through our current in-house communications at the League. Small towns like to tell their stories to their communities and to their boards, but how do they do that? So we help them. We put together a basic press packet with how do you write a press release, how do you use social media. So this is just a snapshot of the many different services that the American Rescue Plan dollars has allowed the League to provide to its members. Many of these things, visions, the League, Chris and folks have told me that they identified these needs many years ago, and this funding was able to let us see it, the vision sought out. So, Rose.
Any questions first, or would you mind just flying through the slides just real quick? If it was me, I could do it. Just to, those are the financial trainings. Just go, do, next. We went all over the state to do those. That was in Goldsboro. Keep going, keep going, keep going, if you don't mind. We won an award for this from the local government, the Award for Excellence in Government Finance from the Government Finance Officers Association. Very proud of our program for that. The last thing we have is a 3-minute video, which you do not have to indulge, but we have it, but it is show, we can't take you out, we didn't bring the people in to talk about what we do, but that is what it shows. You don't have to, but that is what we've got.
I have something I want to suggest to them that I think will help. Let me make a couple of suggestions to you.
Is the video available to us?
It can be,
Can
yes.
you send it to us when we look at it? And a number of the boards are going to hear this. Let me tell you what we run into is with this COVID money is left over, what water needs to be done with water and sewer. And when it comes out, these Garland and all these little small towns, you need a regional program. Well, the engineers are running in and getting the money to write the specs up and draw up the plans and do the sewer plant. And the regional organization will do it. Well, there is no regional organization. And I'm not talking about the COG. I would highly recommend to you to get in touch with the water people and say, where are the towns, if it's Goldsboro or wherever they are,
right?
Baytree Lake, Bladenboro, wherever they are, and y'all go in and try to get the leaders of those towns to understand the importance of forming whatever they want to call it before you start spending the money on designing all the projects. Because then it just floundered. That would be a huge, huge service. Another thing, I don't know if you know this trick or not, are y'all aware about taking the Powell bill money and hawking it in the future and doing all the roads in the town at one time?
I think some cities do that, yes.
Yeah, we do. We've done that. I didn't know a lot of people knew how to do that, but that's a neat trick to know how to hawk your Powell bill money. And then get more streets built in it. And how many towns have airports? That's a city airport. Do you have that? Do you know that?
I don't know offhand. I'm sorry. I can get that for you.
Okay, all right. And how many, what's the longest serving mayor in the state?
I get asked that, and we do not keep that. And so whenever anyone's asking for it, I said it's you.
In White Lake, North Carolina.
Okay.
It's been the mayor 39 years.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Wake Forest is right on his heels.
Yeah. Golston's, that's all I got, Jim. The regional piece, you would really do a great service.
You are exactly right. You are exactly right.
A lot of this stuff, but to get to form the damn regional organization, whatever you want to call it, and say, all right, we're going to buy in because we got to acquire right away, we got to set rates, we got to have preferential treatment, preferential rates, right of first refusal. I mean, a lot of things that need to be done.
And it could be shared services and other things, but the dream is the worst.
The engineering companies, all they want to do is give you a bid. Let me bid and tell you what you're going to do with your waste treatment plant. Here's your price. We'll give you the study. Give me the check. And it sits up on the counter.
Last Friday in Western North Carolina, we hosted an event joint with the County Association, And part of that discussion, the breakout groups, was trying to, excuse me, and get the groups to begin to think in the future regionally. That's exactly right, as they rebuild. Excuse me.
Just it's a hypothetical, but would this league, who's getting dues from their members, ever come in front of this board and say this town needs to be dechartered?
We're
because we have example after example.
I would have to say,
and I'm as long as I'm here, it's not much longer. We are not going to take over another town unless it has a dechartering involved in it, because it just doesn't work long term in my opinion. So, and when we go in and try to set policies and get all these people to kumbaya, come back 3 years later, we're back in the exact same situation.
I know.
I'll tell you another thing you do to help us. Get the legislature, when you want to get rid of the charter and shut the town down, let them do it with a bill and not us have to carry the water in here and decide to sell off the boots in the fire station.
I will not weigh in on that.
I mean, you know, a ferry doesn't make that happen.
Secretary Marshall.
Two minor questions. How many towns are there that are not members of your association, and do these services go to those also?
They do. We give it to anyone who asks, and the number is probably like 5.
We have 550 cities and around 540 members, so it's usually a dozen or less that choose not to participate.
But even if they are, we have helped some who are not incorporated, or who are not, not a members.
I saw that you provided a legal services provider to your members on specific issues related to ARPA. Have you thought about working with somebody to help get auditing services that are sort of standard? Call these guys. I know you don't want to recommend one accounting firm, but we find all the time, we hear, and our staff hears, that, boy, we just couldn't find anybody to provide an audit in this time frame. I sure would like them to be able to pick one off the bookshelf.
It's going to be a big job for you, Mr. State Auditor. It's goosing getting these audits done.
And Mr. Bruce, too, LGC staff does provide a list of auditors willing to perform audits on our website, but as you said, we don't recommend. We make it very clear we're not recommending, but auditors can post on our website if they offer.
Right, and as the regulator, we shouldn't recommend that. As their municipal organization, I would think they could. I'm wondering if they've thought about that.
We are providing audits to towns in the AIM program, and we put out an RFQ for auditing firms to be a part of helping those smaller towns get caught up on their audits.
Okay.
So that's just kind of, I guess, dipping our toe into that, because that's a big problem. We hear the small towns, I can't find an auditor.
Right.
Hopefully, as Chris talked about, the standard chart of accounts with the MASS program and with the training, getting the books caught up with the smaller towns, auditors may have, a greater desire to help these towns, and maybe it won't be, in as big a disarray, but we know that is a problem. Thank you for that.
Secretary Marshall.
No, I was just going to say, these auditors know that there's a mess there, and they're not willing to put their time and energy, and the town's not willing to pay.
And they can't afford it.
Right.
The town can't afford it, right.
Mr. Philback.
Thank you all for coming today. I served City of Shelby in elected office for 12 years, and it goes back a long time. Dave Reynolds was executive director, who died, and then Ellis Hankins of the league. But my observation then and my observation now with about 11 years on this board is, if not our biggest issue, small towns that don't do what cities should be doing are before us more often than anybody else with issues. And I don't know about dechartering, but some of them need to be communities and not towns. The ones in Cleveland County has one of the highest municipality rates in the state. A county of a little over 100,000. We have 15 incorporated municipalities, and probably over half of them do very little that cities should do. And it's a problem. A lot of those started because of revenue sharing in the 70s, and that's how they could get street lights and sidewalks, but they just do nothing. But They are an issue, and they have a lot of the financial issues. And I know that that's not technically what y'all do in a lot of ways, but I know we had 500 cities back then, but good grief, we got a lot of cities that do hardly anything cities really should do.
And that's why I was coming in about getting the legislature to pull the charter, don't dump that on us as a mission creep, because that's found its way to, and was it Dale, which county you tell about has no cities in it?
Currituck.
Currituck has no cities. No municipalities.
Lincoln County has one.
Hmm?
Does it Lincoln County have one? Yeah.
Lincoln County has one. I appreciate you coming. I don't know if you took my admonition a few years ago, but and I really don't care if board members want to criticize me saying this to you, but putting members on your board that are in trouble with this board is not a good idea. There's nothing good to come from that.
We have an elected board. We have
deciding your employment and your salary, and they're in trouble with this board. That's not going to end well. And so I think that you've tried to pay more attention to not putting members on your board who they themselves are in trouble with this board.
It is an elected process, and it is by our membership, but it is something that I am aware of. I know, right?
A good answer to that is I heard you twice the first time.
That's right. That's right.
Good way to answer that. I heard you twice the first time.
That is a good.
Anything else?
Well, this is called the hot seat.
How much money did you get from the General Assembly to do all this?
It'd be $25 million.
It's a total of $25 million.
And how much have you spent?
We are scheduled to spend it throughout, the services out through the end of 2026, and we're on track.
Is this COVID money?
It is COVID money.
So it has to be spent by the end of 2026. We've spent just about a little over $10 million. So a lot of that, like I said, has been done in the last 2 years. So we are on track next year to spend about $7 million and $7 million in the fiscal year after that. We aim to have it all done by the end, December 31st,
Aside from
2026.
spending and having a PowerPoint presentation, if they called you up right now and said, show us two things that the money we've allocated you so far where it's actually made a difference.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's it's not a near-term problem, and I think we have good footing, right?
Okay. All right. Is that it? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I'll move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Any further discussion?
This is an all in favor.
All in favor, before I adjourn, I want to thank Alder-elect Bolick for hanging in there. You outlasted the treasurer-elect, so you always got that over him, right? Yes.
Obiall used to be my boss.
Very proud of Dave. Showing my age now.
Well, I'm visually looking at this and not believing what you're telling me.
It's hard to believe. It's hard for me to believe.
No, not in that direction, though. Not in the direction you think.
I know where you were going.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, we're adjourned. Thank you.